Naruto, born in the Senju clan with a Sharingan. Chapter 1. Wow ah ah! A baby's cry was heard, and at the same time, a silver-white lightning suddenly streaked across the night sky, accompanied by a loud thunder, and heavy rain poured down. In the territory of the Senju tribe, a tall man ran towards the delivery room in the heavy rain. The moment he heard the baby crying, he suddenly froze, and then rushed in even faster. Ah! Fire! Monster! Monster! AHH! A woman ran out of the door in a hurry, her whole body covered in flames, and she stumbled into the rain. In an instant, all the people in the delivery room rushed out, screaming monster and fleeing from the room. Senju Fushima rushed into the delivery room against the flow of people, thinking that it was a sneak attack by ninjas from another tribe, and his heart couldn't stop beating fast. In the delivery room, 1,000-armed Buddha stood by the bed with a serious look, holding the baby by the scruff of the neck with one hand. Looking closely, one could see that the baby's hands were actually emitting red flames and were burning with crackling sounds. My little brother knows ninjutsu as soon as he was born. He's so amazing. Hashirama Senju, who was lying on the head of his mother's bed, said while scratching his head, breaking the silence in the room. Senju Wajian and Senju Itama were still young and didn't understand what silence meant. They just subconsciously followed their eldest brother and cheered. Brother! Senju Tobirama tugged at the corner of Senju Hashirama's clothes with some fear. Although he was young, he was born with a keen sense and instinctively felt that it was not a good decision for Senju Hashirama to speak at this time. The 1,000-armed Buddha remained silent, and the atmosphere in the room gradually became cold. Anata, where is my child? Let me see him. A weak female voice broke the silence in the room. Qian Shao Buddha's serious expression softened like an iceberg melting. But his tone was unyielding. I'm sorry, Haruko. I'll bring him to you when you're better. The weak woman on the bed looked at 1,000-handed Buddha with despair. She was afraid that she would never be able to see this child again, the child she had carried for 10 months with great difficulty. She begged cautiously, Fujian, please let him go. He is our child. He is not a monster. Senju Furuma felt sorry to see his wife, who had been with him for many years and had given birth to his children, looking at him like that, but he just told Senju Haruko to take good care of herself and turned away, holding the strange child that was still flaming in her hand. Haruko Senju closed her eyes in despair, and a tear rolled down from the corner of her eyes. Clan leader, we lost the battle with the Uchiha. A strange red flame suddenly appeared on the battlefield, burning many of our 1,000 warriors to death. Even heavy rain could not put out the flame. That child is a monster. Chief. That's a monster. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. After comforting the 1,000 people, Senju Fujian took the baby to a secret room. The baby was very well behaved. When the 1,000-armed Buddha put him down, he giggled at him. Senju Fujian couldn't bring himself to do it. He thought about how much Senju Haruko was looking forward to the birth of the child. She had even named the child in advance Kagumikawa, because she was afraid that Senju Fujian would give his youngest son another old-fashioned name. Perhaps sensing the 1,000-armed Buddha's hesitation, the flame in the baby's hand gradually dimmed and went out. Kinjo Fujian couldn't do it anymore, but he also had to give an explanation to the Kinjo people. Since Jingchuan was born, he has been bound to a sticking system and he awakened the memories of his previous life when he was a baby. In order to survive in this world, Jingchuan must obtain sticker points to exchange for life points. There are 2 ways to obtain the value of the sticker. One is to come into contact with living things with vital signs. Different living things can bring different values of stickers. The second is to come into contact with different blood, but this method can only obtain a one-time patch value. Jingchuan thought that as a baby, it would be easy for him to interact with others. But he did not expect that since he could remember, the only living person he could see was his mother. In this way, Jingchuan barely lived to the age of 3 by spending time with his mother every day. But recently, the sticker value obtained from contact with Haruko Senju has been getting less and less, from the initial sticky value +4 slowly reduced to sticky value +1. During this period, Senju Kagumikawa tried to get his mother to take him out instead of staying in this small room all day without seeing the sun. But every time, Haruko Senju would show a sad look and reject his request. After many rejections, Kagamawa gradually understood that it was not that Haruko Senju did not want to take him out, but that she simply could not. Ever since Jing Chuan expressed his desire to leave the room, his feet had been locked tightly with iron chains, and he was unable to step out of the door at all. Kagamawa has never seen his biological father. He and Haruko Senju have their 3 meals and necessities delivered to their doorstep every day. Combined with the harsh conditions here, Senju Kagamawa often has no food to eat in the winter. Senju Kagamawa began to have conspiracy theories. He suspected that his mother in this life was trafficked here, but after verification, he found that the people here treated Haruko Senju with respect and did not restrict her from going out. Even though Kagamawa only occasionally saw a few people talking to Haruko Senju through the crack in the door. But those people's attitude towards him was obviously extremely disgusted. This may be because he is regarded as a monster because of his strange fire ability. That's right, the power of fire. When Jing Chuan was a baby, he discovered that he could control fire. At first, due to his lack of proficiency, he was unable to control the fire well and often burned some furniture. Later, it was unknown where his mother Haruko Senju found a pair of gloves. Since then, Kagamawa Senju, who wore the gloves, never used fire again. Senju Kagamawa had thought about taking off his gloves and using flames to burn the chains, but whenever he saw Senju Haruko's sad eyes, he could do nothing. But recently, Senju Haruko's health has been deteriorating, she is awake less and less in a day, and Kagamawa gets less and less points. Kagamawa, who just turned 3 years old, decided to sneak out while Senju Haruko was sleeping. As an ordinary person who needs sunlight and air, he doesn't want to be locked up here for the rest of his life. That night, Senju Kagawa secretly took off his gloves and tried to melt the chains with flames. But to his shock, he was unable to use his fire powers even with the gloves off. When Jing Chuan tried to mobilize the flame, he felt that the path of the flame seemed to be blocked by something, and the meridians in his body felt sluggish. How so? Jing Chuan was increasingly confused, and he asked the system, why can't I use fire skills? System testing. Ding. Restricted by an unknown force. Ding. System error. Jing Chuan was shocked. He looked at the chains on his feet and immediately understood where the sense of disobedience came from. It's over. Kagamawa thought to himself that he might not be able to escape when Senju Haruko wasn't paying attention. At this moment, Senju Haruko on the bed groaned in pain, frowned, and then slowly opened her beautiful red eyes. She saw Jing Chuan at a glance, and the 2 gloves scattered beside him. Jing Chuan froze for a moment. Chapter 2. Jing Chuan froze. He clenched his hands suddenly, not knowing how to explain to Haruko Senju. Haruko Senju always resisted him taking off her gloves. She doesn't want Jing Chuan to go out. When Haruko Senju saw the scene in front of her, how could she not know what Kagamawa was trying to do? But to Kagamawa's surprise, Senju Haruko did not yell at him or blame him. The woman with white hair and red eyes just lifted the quilt, got out of bed weakly and slowly, then slowly walked to Jing Chuan's side, then squatted down, gently hugged her child, and whispered. I'm sorry, Kagamawa. I'm sorry, as a mother, I can't let you run freely in the sun. Haruko Senju's tears slowly flowed down her face and dripped onto the head of the child who had the same hair color as her. Kagamawa froze. He felt Senju Haruko's hand gently stroking his back, as if to comfort him. The light in the room is dim, but the time is peaceful. After that day, Haruko Senju kept a closer eye on him and even held him in her arms when he was unconscious. Yes, coma. Nowadays, Haruko Senju is awake for no more than 5 hours a day. Her physical condition is getting worse and worse, and she often falls asleep while talking. Even though Haruko Senju was unconscious, Kagamawa still couldn't break free from her arms because Haruko Senju was too strong. I don't know why a terminally ill woman could have so much strength. Even if Jing Chuan wanted to escape, he was unable to do so. When Haruko Senju was conscious, a doctor would take her out for treatment, but it was obvious that the effect was minimal. Jing Chuan has also been looking for medicine to cure the disease in the system mall, but the sky-high price of medicines with a cost of more than 5 figures is obviously not something Jing Chuan can afford. Kagamawa used the sticker points he had saved for a long time to barely exchange for a chance to draw a card, hoping that he would have better luck and draw the medicine to cure Senju Haruko's disease. Primary healing skills. Kagomikawa got the draw, and he would curl up in Senju Haruko's arms every day to use his skills, hoping that it would be of some help. The skill was used too many times and was automatically upgraded to intermediate healing. But this only extended Haruko Senju's life by more than a year. Perhaps it was an old injury she suffered on the battlefield in her early years, or perhaps it was the continuous birth of children after getting married that damaged her foundation, but Senju Haruko eventually passed away when Kagomikawa was 4 years old. Before leaving, Senju Haruko had a last moment of clarity and said a lot to Kagomikawa. She said that Kagomikawa was the person she was most worried about. It was also on the day that Senju Haruko passed away that Kagomikawa finally learned his last name and found out that he had 4 older brothers. Senju Kagawa met many people that day, including his father, brothers, and some other members of the Senju tribe. Jing Chuan saw his biological father's eyes red, his brothers crying loudly, and the Senju people observing a moment of silence. But Jing Chuan couldn't cry. Some members of the Senju tribe called him a cold-blooded monster. Senju Jing Chuan thought, maybe that's true, otherwise why don't I shed a single tear? In his previous life, Kagomikawa was an orphan. In this life, he felt the motherly love from Senju Haruko but soon lost it. On the day when Haruko Senju was buried, Kagomikawa Senju was released. Haruko Senju used her life to buy the freedom of Kagomikawa Senju. I am really free. Jing Chuan said to the system with emotion. The emotionless system did not understand the meaning of freedom and did not answer Jing Chuan. As Jing Chuan walked on the road, he saw his fellow tribesmen's indifference towards him. They all wanted to retreat as far as possible. Jing Chuan didn't care about the attitude of his people. In his opinion, time travel was just like a game, and the people of the Thousand Hands tribe who were unfamiliar to him were just like NPCs. How could a player care about the opinions of NPCs? Jing Chuan is actually thinking about a dream he had a few days ago. After waking up, he didn't remember the content of the dream, but he couldn't figure out why he inexplicably gained a lot of sticker points after waking up. Suddenly, someone patted Jing Chuan from behind, interrupting his thoughts. Ding! Sticker value +6. Senshao Jing Chuan knew who the person was without turning his head. After all, not everyone can contribute 6 sticking points at once. Kagomikawa turned his head and saw that it was Hashirama Senju, his nominal elder brother. Jing Chuan no longer thought about that nonsensical dream. After all, he didn't lose anything by getting the sticker value for free. Let's go, Kagomikawa, and go home for dinner. Hashirama Senju, with a watermelon-like head and a mouthful of big white teeth, said to Kagomikawa Senju. Kagomikawa was infected by Hashirama Senju's smile and couldn't help but smile as well. He and Hashirama Senju rushed towards the direction called home. The shadow on the ground gradually lengthened, but the thin child was no longer alone as he was now accompanied by a tall figure. The night he regained his freedom, Jing Chuan had a strange dream. In the dream, he is still the same age and looks the same as now. This was the first time that Jing Chuan saw his real self so clearly in a dream, so he looked at his reflection in the lake for a long time out of curiosity. Humph, a monster is a monster. How can we play with a monster? Suddenly, a boy's mocking voice was heard. Jing Chuan thought he was talking about himself, so he turned his head and saw several children gathered in a circle in front of him. My mom told me not to play with you. You're dirty all day, don't even think about playing with us. A few more little boys chattered. Go and get our ball back, or I'll hit you! Shouted the tallest boy in the group. Is it bullying? Tisk, he has become a scumbag at such a young age. Jing Chuan thought. He was bullied as an orphan in his previous life, so he couldn't stand this kind of bully. Jing Chuan walked forward and stepped on the small ball that fell on the ground, and the small ball made a sound of deflation. Several little boys who heard the sound looked over immediately. Brother! The balloon is deflated. Strange, why does it feel like someone stepped on me? Can't they see me? Jing Chuan wondered in his heart. Humph! This monster must be too unlucky. It made our ball deflate. Brother! Beat this monster! I'm not a monster. The ball didn't lose air because of me. A childish voice came from the group of boys. He dares to speak. Big brother! Hit him! Jing Chuan was a little angry. He picked up the ball on the ground and prepared to throw it at the boys to scare them. One of the boys was facing Jing Chuan when he suddenly saw the deflated ball floating in the air. The little boy, who was already afraid of ghosts and gods, screamed in fright. "Ah brother, look, the ball is floating." The other boys also turned their heads to look after hearing this. The ball that was originally floating in the air suddenly moved and floated towards them. "Ah! There's a ghost!" In an instant, the boys' screams and howls could be heard in the woods. The boys ran away, leaving behind only a little boy who looked about the same age as Jing Chuan. The little boy was wearing an old orange shirt with several patches on it and several scratches on his body. He looked quite disheveled. But the little boy is very cute, with golden hair, sky blue eyes, and 6 whiskers on his face. He looks like a little fox. Jing Chuan put the ball down and prepared to leave. "Wait a minute. Thank you for saving me." The boy's childish voice came. "What? He can see me." Jing Chuan turned his head in shock and saw the fox boy staring at the direction where he was standing. Chapter 3. Why can't they see you and only I can see you? The fox boy asked Jing Chuan puzzledly. "Maybe it's because I'm an angel, ha ha ha." Jing Chuan laughed. The fox boy tilted his head and asked with clear blue eyes. "What is an angel?" "Angels are gods that only the strongest and kindest children can see. You are the strongest child, so only you can see me." Jing Chuan touched the head of the child in front of him, and suddenly heard the prompt sound of Tai Tai value +10. Although in a dream, Jing Chuan subconsciously continued to pull the fox boy's golden hair. Gold should be a dazzling color, but the boy's blonde hair was dry and tangled, without any luster, and looked like he was malnourished. The fox boy's stomach suddenly growled. He scratched his head embarrassedly and chuckled twice. After learning that the fox boy had not eaten today, Jing Chuan took him fishing and taught him his own fishing techniques. The fox boy followed Jing Chuan and soon learned how to catch fish. The two sat on the shore and grilled fish. After eating and drinking, they lay on the grass. "Thank you, brother angel. I'm so full today." "Kid, if someone bullies you again, just fight them. If you win, no one will dare to bully you anymore." Jing Chuan looked at the stars in the sky and couldn't help but think of himself in his previous life. If he didn't become stronger, he would only be bullied more miserably. Jing Chuan thought, maybe this boy was really imagined by him to make up for his childhood. After Jing Chuan said this, his vision gradually became blurred and he was about to wake up from his dream. "I understand. Thank you, angel brother. I will definitely become Hokage. I will definitely be liked by everyone. My name is..." The last sentence was vague and Jing Chuan didn't hear the fox boy's name. The fox boy was still lying on the grass after disappearing in Mirror River, his blue eyes looking at the night sky, with bright stars twinkling in his eyes. For several days, Senju Jing Chuan couldn't remember the content of his dream, but soon, Jing Chuan had no time to think about it. In this ninja world filled with smoke of gunpowder, there are no children as long as they are born into the ninja clan, and every member of the clan is a ninja. Although Kagamikawa has never been welcomed by the Senju clan, now that he has been released, he should shoulder the responsibilities that belong to the Senju ninja. Senju Jing Chuan began his training. Of course, although he was not liked by the Senju people, he was still the son of Senju Fusuma, and the training he should undergo was several times that of other people in the tribe. Senju Butsuma personally taught Kagamigawa ninjutsu. But obviously, Senju Kagamikawa, who had been imprisoned as a monster for 4 years, did not have enough physical strength to practice ninjutsu. He couldn't even extract chakra. Although the training is hard, Senju Kagamikawa still hopes to learn ninjutsu, not just to be cool or out of curiosity, but also to be able to survive well in this different world. However, Kagamikawa could feel the huge amount of chakra in his body, but every time Senju Kagamikawa tried to circulate the chakra, he felt that there was some force preventing the energy from being released. It's like a person who has been walking in the desert for 10 days or half a month and finally finds a large freshwater lake, but cannot drink the water. Senju Kagamikawa has never believed that he really has no talent for ninjutsu, and he has been trying to learn ninjutsu. But no matter how he circulated chakra according to the method taught by Senju Butsuma, he couldn't use it, even the most basic 3-body technique. After lunch, Senju Kagawa lay on the table with a look of despair, staring in a daze at Senju Wajian and Itama who were practicing enthusiastically outside the door. Watching his 2 brothers use brilliant ninjutsu, Senju Kagawa shed tears of envy and jealousy. The warm midday sun shone outside the door. Senju Jingchuan sat in the shadow, pulling the little rabbit's fur fiercely. Senju Hashirama walked over, rubbed Senju Kagamikawa's short white hair, and asked, "Why is Kagamikawa so depressed?" Hearing the system prompt sound of Tai value +6, Senju Jingchuan rubbed his head against the palm of Senju Hashirama's hand and felt that the discomfort in his heart was not so severe. "I envy brothers and Itama for being able to learn ninjutsu. My father said that I may not have the talent to be a ninja." Senju Kagawa acted pitifully in front of Senju Hashirama, with her long eyelashes drooping slightly. Her lost look made Senju Hashirama feel distressed. "If you don't know ninjutsu, you don't know it. From now on, Big Brother will support you, so who can bully you?" Senju Hashirama said to Senju Kagawa domineeringly. At this time, Senju Tobirama came over and said coldly, "Brother, you can't support Jingchuan forever. The war situation is so tense now, and we are always ready to go to the battlefield. If Jingchuan can't protect himself, who can protect him forever?" After hearing what Senju Tobirama said, Senju Hashirama immediately became depressed and looked faded. Senju Tobirama had already gotten used to Senju Hashirama's depressed look, so he said to Senju Kagawa, "Come on, I'll teach you ninjutsu." Senju Jingchuan jumped up excitedly, and the rabbit in his hand finally broke free from Senju Jingchuan's clutches and jumped lightly to the ground. Senju Tobirama asked Senju Kagamikawa to circulate his chakra and then perform the clone jutsu. Just like before, as soon as Senju Jingchuan started to circulate chakra, he felt as if there was some force blocking his body. The chakra flow was very difficult and his meridians were very stagnant. Jingchuan tried to break through this obstacle, but the more he tried, the stronger the obstacle seemed to him. Soon, cold sweat broke out on Jingchuan's forehead. Only when a thin layer of blue chakra barely appeared on his body did Jingchuan change his hand gestures and begin to make seals. A crooked, pale clone was summoned, but it lasted less than 2 seconds before disappearing. Kagamikawa was already very tired at this time. He put down his hand and said weakly to Tobirama, "Brother Tobirama, that's it. I feel like the chakra pathways are blocked, and the clones I managed to cast can hardly last long." Senju Tobirama and Senju Hashirama have been frowning and looking at him seriously since Kagamikawa started to run his chakra. "Ah, is it because the amount of chakra is too little, Tobirama?" Hashirama Senju turned and asked Tobirama Senju, hoping to get an answer from him. Senju Tobirama has been studying ninjutsu, chakra and the like since he was a child. Seeing this, Kagamikawa couldn't help but place his hopes on Senju Tobirama. Senju Tobirama pondered for a moment before slowly shaking his head and said, "I can't be sure of the reason, but it shouldn't be because of too little chakra. Is there really no way? It seems that I really can't learn ninjutsu." Senju Kagawa said with a sad face. Senju Atama and Itama immediately came over to comfort the lost Kagamikawa and said in unison, "Don't worry, Jingchuan, we will definitely protect you." Hashirama rubbed Senju Kagamikawa's head and said with a smile, "Don't be so serious." Senju Tobirama said, "Don't worry too much, I will study it first." When Jingchuan heard what his brothers said, he suddenly felt a warm current in his heart. Ever since he traveled through time, the ninja world, which was so different from his previous life, always made him feel alienated. He always felt like he was in a game, and only when he was with his family did he feel it was real. The warm spring breeze blew by, stirring the heartstrings of the otherworldly souls. A few days later, Senju Fusuma gradually gave up teaching Kagawa ninjutsu, but he obviously couldn't abandon any member of the Senju clan who could become a fighting force. He began to train Senju Kagawa's physical fitness to death, hoping that Senju Kagawa could show some improvement in physical skills. Fortunately, Senju Kagamikawa, who has the bloodline of the Senju, is obviously very suitable for the path of physical skills. Although he is still malnourished, his physical strength and physical reaction ability are better than most ninjas. Even Senju Jingchuan's innate powerful recovery ability and the intermediate healing skills obtained through patching value can quickly help Senju Jingchuan recover to his best condition. However, being trained to death by Senju Fujian every day, Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but feel physically and mentally exhausted. Even an Iron Man can't stand the force of thousand-handed Buddha. Senju Kagawa complained to his 4 brothers about Senju Buddha, hoping to get some comfort. "Father thinks highly of Kagamikawa, so Kagamikawa must work hard," said the 4th brother Senju Itama, looking at Senju Kagamikawa with encouragement in his eyes. Obviously, the brothers who were ninjas could not empathize with Senju Kagamikawa, an ordinary person in his previous life. Senju Jingchuan wanted to cry but had no tears, but he could only work harder to extract the sticky points from his brothers, hoping to draw a skill that could alleviate his pain. In excitement, Senju Jingchuan clicked the card drawing button. A golden light flashed, and a card suddenly appeared in Qian Shao Jingchuan's hand. Pain Adjustment Card. Chapter 4. Extreme Joy Leads to Sorrow. Pain Adjustment Card. Senju Jingchuan was stunned with joy for a moment, then he couldn't help jumping up and laughing silently. Now Senshao Jingchuan wants to roar to the sky and let the whole world share his joy. Whatever you think comes true, ha ha ha. Jingchuan might really be a lucky guy. Senju Jingchuan thought that he was no longer afraid of the devilish training of Senju Fujian. A few days after obtaining the pain adjustment card, Senju Jingchuan immediately adjusted his pain to 0. Even Senju Fujian was puzzled as to why Senju Jingchuan suddenly seemed to be no longer afraid of pain and was training to death. However, accidents always come so unexpectedly. During the training, Senju Kagawa suddenly charged at Senju Fujian. Senju Fujian certainly couldn't just stand there and wait for Senju Kagawa to hit him, so his excellent ninja qualities allowed him to dodge easily. However, Qian Shao Jingchuan accidentally lost control of his strength and crashed headfirst into the tree behind Qian Shao Buddha. With a bang, the birds on the tree scattered in an instant, circling in the sky chirping. The crash into the thousand-armed Buddha's chamber was actually an act of self-destruction by Jingchuan when his mind was not clear. He used all his strength to crash into it. Therefore, even though Senju Jingchuan did not feel any pain, he was hit so hard that he saw stars and passed out. The moment Qian Shao Jingchuan hit the tree, a crack suddenly appeared at the place where Qian Shao Jingchuan hit the tree. The next second, the tree, which was as tall as 2,000-handed Buddhas, fell down with a loud bang. It fell in the direction of Senju Kagamai River. After reacting, Thousand-handed Buddha quickly picked up thousand-handed Jingchuan and dodged, otherwise there would be an extra meat pie on the ground. At this time, there was a hole in the center of Senju Jingchuan's forehead, and blood was gushing out. The blood soon soaked his entire face, making him look very miserable. The medical staff who came to treat Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but sigh that Senju Jingchuan was really asking for death. After receiving professional treatment, Senju Jingchuan woke up quickly thanks to his good self-healing ability and physical fitness. Except for still feeling a little dizzy, Senju Jingchuan did not feel any discomfort. It should be a concussion. Senju Kagawa touched his forehead, which was wrapped in heavy gauze, curiously, and thought calmly amidst waves of nausea. It seems that the pain sensation can no longer be completely adjusted to 0 in the future. After this battle, Senju Jingchuan finally understood how troublesome it would be when a person completely loses the sense of pain. During the period when he lost his sense of pain, Senju Jingchuan clearly felt that he had suffered more and more serious injuries. Even though he could not feel the pain, these injuries would occasionally cause him to suffer from muscle weakness, which to some extent not only delayed his training but also affected his daily life. While thinking this, Senju Kagamikawa comforted Senju Hashirama who was crying on him. "Wuwu, why is Jingchuan injured so badly? Does it still hurt?" "Wuwu." Senju Hashirama held Senju Kagawa tightly with his strong arms, almost strangling Senju Kagawa to death. "Ahem, let go of my hands." Senju Kagawa struggled to break free from Senju Hashirama's arms. People who didn't know him would think that Senju Hashirama was trying to murder him because of his strength. Although it was really cool to hear Tai value +6, Kagamikawa was more afraid of being strangled to death by Senju Hashirama. After being refused a hug by Kagamikawa, Senju Hashirama became even more emo. He looked depressed, and with his strange hairstyle, he looked like a depressed mushroom. By the way, if I was strangled to death, would Senju Hashirama commit seppuku like in the Japanese dramas I watched in my previous life? Senju Kagamikawa thought inappropriately. I don't know if it's the after effect of hitting my head, but Senju Jingchuan's thoughts are very nonsensical. When he's thinking about one thing, his mind always drifts to other places. Looking at his silly elder brother and his younger brother who was hit and made stupid, Senju Tobirama couldn't help but hold his forehead in his hand, feeling deeply that his responsibility as the second son of the Senju family was very heavy. Senju Tobirama drove away the brothers who came to visit him and ordered Kagamikawa to have a good rest. Without the disturbance of others, Senju Jingchuan could finally have a good sleep. He had to think about how to spend these beautiful days without Senju Fujian training. With his vision for tomorrow, Senju Jingchuan finally fell asleep peacefully. The dream was bizarre and strange. Qian Shao Jingchuan felt as if he was drifting on the ocean without his feet ever touching the ground. Senju Jingchuan couldn't open his eyes, as if they were stuck by something. Only the feeling of weightlessness in his body was so clear. Suddenly, Senju Jingchuan felt as if someone was holding him tightly in his arms, and he was finally no longer weightless. Roar! Senju Jingchuan seemed to hear the angry roar of some wild beast. He tried his best to open his eyes but only saw an orange and yellow color and ruins. Senju Jingchuan woke up suddenly and couldn't help but grab the sheets under him. Senju Jingchuan had forgotten the specific scene in the dream, but the feeling of palpitations still remained in his heart. Noticing that his face was a little wet, Senju Jingchuan raised his hand and touched it, and felt tears on his hand. I cried? What was this dream about? Senju Kagawa was confused, but the more he tried to remember the contents of his dream, the faster he forgot it. Soon, Senju Jingchuan could no longer remember the content of his dream, and even the trace of heartache disappeared without a trace. Senshao Jingchuan no longer worried about the content of his dream and fell into a deep sleep. The time without training suddenly became very difficult to endure, and Senju Jingchuan, who had nothing to do, just felt bored. The four brothers are already official ninjas and have started going out on missions. They can hardly be seen in Senju Kagamikawa during the day. Not to mention them, there are basically no people in the Senju clan's territory during the day. Most of the ninjas have gone out to take missions. Those who are left are either young children in training, or are building the clan's territory or maintaining its operation. During the days of recuperation, Qian Shao Jingchuan wandered around the clan territory. Everyone in the clan was very busy and had no time to pay attention to him. Perhaps it was because Senju Jingchuan had been very well behaved in the few months since he was released and had not caused any trouble, so everyone who had not seen Senju Jingchuan's strange fire ability gradually let go of their grudges and were no longer so repulsive to him. However, when Senju Jingchuan approached them, they would still subconsciously avoid physical contact with Senju Jingchuan, which made it impossible for Senju Jingchuan, who wanted to increase his sticky points, to do so. On this day, Qian Shao Jingchuan was still wandering around the clan territory. Medical ninja! Come here, medical ninja! A panicked male voice suddenly reached Senju Kagawa's ears, startling the dazed Senju Kagawa so much that he froze for a moment. Senju Jingchuan turned his head and saw several men surrounding a person covered in blood. It can be seen that the injured person is in urgent need of treatment, but unfortunately, the medical team of the Senju clan has been dispatched this morning, and now there is not a single medical ninja left in the clan territory. Senju Kagamikawa clearly saw that when they heard that there were no medical ninjas on duty in the clan territory, the men showed expressions of despair. Chapter 5. Healing. Can I try it? Senju Jingchuan asked as he approached. Seeing that it was Senju Jingchuan, the Senju people surrounding him showed obvious surprise and subconsciously took a few steps away from him. Senju Jingchuan maintained a relatively appropriate distance and looked up at the leading man. He blinked his round cat eyes, his long eyelashes fluttering. His fair and delicate face did not look like the rough Senju clan, but very much like the Uchiha next door. The thick white bandage still wrapped around his forehead added a touch of innocence to him. The leading man frowned instantly when he saw the kid, Senju Kagamikawa. Even though Senju Kagawa's delicate face was full of innocence, he subconsciously sent out signals of resistance to the boy who was called a monster. You little kid, don't hinder us from finding a medical ninja. A man with a long scar across his face next to the leading man yelled at Senju Kagawa and hurried over to drive Kagawa away. Senju Kagamikawa saw the scar on the man's face that ran from the left corner of his forehead to the right lower jaw, but he did not get scared and leave as he had wished. He still stood there calmly. The Senju people who were watching nearby also began to condemn Senju Jingchuan, complaining that he was ignorant. I'm afraid this kid standing here will delay other people's treatment. In my opinion, that man may not be able to be saved. He lost so much blood and his injuries were too severe. Sigh. Hey, keep your voice down. Don't let him hear you and come to your house and set fire to it at night. I heard that he... Senju Jingchuan was not angry after hearing the comments around him. He just smiled innocently and still looked up at them. His voice was childish but crisp, revealing a hint of firmness. I'm a ninja, not a kid. As soon as the words fell, the people around fell silent, and even the men couldn't help but show admiring looks. Then, Senju Jingchuan suddenly reached out and grabbed the scarred man in front of him. A light green light emerged from his hand, and the bloodstain on the scarred man's arm was healed instantly. Seeing this, everyone around was surprised. They only heard that the monster youngest son of Senju Butsuken had no talent for learning ninjutsu, but they didn't expect that Senju Kagawa could actually know healing techniques. The scarred man's face turned even redder, as if he had been slapped in the face. The leading man couldn't help but look at Senju Kagawa in surprise. Qian Shao Jingchuan smiled, looked up at the leading man, and said, "The medical ninja from the medical team went out on an emergency mission this morning. You can't find anyone who knows medical ninjutsu except me now. Please let me try." Although the Senju Kagawa did not use medical ninjutsu, the effect was almost the same as medical ninjutsu, wasn't it? This was not a lie. The leading man finally relented and said, "You come and try it." "Brother! What's wrong with you?" The scarred man still didn't believe in Senju Jingchuan's strength, and was afraid that the monster in front of him would accidentally hurt the wounded. The leading man interrupted him, sighed and explained, "We can only choose to trust him. Even if something really happens, they could only accept their fate. After all, they couldn't conjure a medical ninja out of thin air." The other men also understood what the leader had not finished saying, and a look of sadness suddenly appeared on their faces. "He's not dead yet, why are you so depressed?" Sen Shao Jingchuan couldn't help but complain when he saw their expressions as if their parents had died. He carefully observed the wounded man's injuries. Standing on the periphery just now, he could only see the ground stained red with blood. When he looked closely, he found that the man's injuries were more serious than he thought. A long bloodstain ran deep through the abdomen of the man in front of him. It looked like a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The flesh was turned inside out, and the clothes around it were stained red with blood, and the original color could not be seen. I guess he had done some hemostasis beforehand, and there was no more bleeding. This should be the most serious wound on his body. There was another wound at the clavicle, and it was obvious that it almost cut the man's neck. If the man had not dodged it, the aorta might have been cut immediately, leading to death from heavy bleeding. The rest were minor wounds. Senju Jingchuan did not dare to delay at all. He immediately placed his hands on the wound on the man's abdomen and began to perform advanced healing techniques. That's right, advanced healing. After Senju Jingchuan healed a small wound for the scarred man, his healing skill was upgraded to advanced healing, probably because he had accumulated enough healing points from healing himself before. A few minutes later, beads of cold sweat appeared on Senju Jingchuan's forehead. His face, which was already pale due to his serious illness, turned completely pale, and his lips were completely bloodless. But the horrific wound on the seriously injured man's abdomen had obviously improved and was healing rapidly. The Senju people around were shocked to see the seriously injured man gradually recovering. They didn't expect that a 4-year-old kid like Senju Jingchuan could actually heal such a serious wound. After a while, only a layer of flesh-pink, hideous scar remained on the man's abdominal wound. The man slowly woke up at this time, and his face, which was as pale as paper, gradually regained color. Senju Jingchuan stopped the healing technique, and just as he was about to stand up, he felt his body suddenly lose strength. After a feeling of weightlessness, Senju Jingchuan fell backwards. The leading man behind him immediately caught the falling Senju Jingchuan and held him with his advantageous arms. Paste value +4. After receiving the new patch value, Senju Jingchuan immediately felt a lot better. The black spots in front of his eyes gradually faded, and his body gradually regained its strength. "What's wrong? Are you feeling better?" the leading man asked Senju Jingchuan worriedly. Senju Jingchuan didn't say anything. He just continued to stick to the leading man and continued to listen to the sound of the money being credited into his account. He felt very happy in his heart. It's so tiring to treat a person, I have to make a profit. Qian Shao Jingchuan thought silently in his heart. Seeing that Qian Shao Jingchuan didn't reply, the leading man thought that he hadn't recovered yet, and couldn't help but said guiltily. "Thank you so much for today. It was my fault for being unreasonable before. If you have any troubles in the future, please come to me. I owe you a favor this time." At this time, the seriously injured man also woke up. His voice was weak but his tone was firm. "Kid, I also accepted your favor today. From now on, my life belongs to you." Several of his teammates also thanked Senju Kagawa, and the scarred man with a bad attitude also said thank you to Senju Kagawa awkwardly. Hearing the waves of praise, Qian Shaojing Chuan couldn't help but feel proud and a little embarrassed. So he also healed the injuries of several other people. Chapter 6. A Strange World View. Ever since Senju Jingchuan cured a seriously injured patient in public and also healed the wounds of an entire team, Senju Jingchuan's reputation in the Senju clan changed instantly. The Senju people who were present at the scene talked about this strange thing after dinner. Even though Senju Jingchuan was regarded as a monster, they couldn't help but admire him. The other members of the Thousand Hands tribe who were not present at the scene naturally did not quite believe this, but they could not help but sigh that Thousand Hands Fujian's sons were all very promising, and that Thousand Hands Fujian was really good at giving birth to sons. In fact, when it comes down to it, strength is still respected in the ninja world. The reason why Senju Kagamikawa was once regarded as a monster was only because he burned several midwives to death when he was born and happened to be born on the day when Senju was defeated. Being afraid of Kagamikawa is purely human nature's fear of unknown things. However, since being released, Senju Jingchuan has not done anything to harm others, nor has he revealed his strange fire ability, and he has even saved people now. At this point, most of the Thousand-Handed clan members had let go of their grudges and began to accept the monster youngest son of the Thousand-Handed Buddha. After all, who would dare to offend a ninja who knows medical ninjutsu? In this ninja world where a big battle every 3 days and a small battle every 2 days, every ninja's head is tied tightly to his belt, and he lives a life of blood on the tip of a knife. No ninja would be so ignorant as to provoke a medical ninja. In addition, since that day, the Senju tribe members have carefully observed for a long time and found that Senju Jingchuan often helps the tribe members and is a well-behaved child by nature. From then on, whenever Senju Jingchuan walked in the Senju clan's territory, people would greet him. This sharp contrast with the previous days made Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but sigh, and he spent a few days in extreme comfort. As for why just a few days? That's because, a few days later, Senju Kagawa's head was completely healed, not even a scar was left, and he returned to his previous daily routine of being unilaterally beaten by Senju Bujian. Even knowing that Kagamikawa was skilled in medical ninjutsu, Senju Fusuma did not show mercy to the girl, but instead beat her up with greater confidence. Therefore, after only a few days of comfort, Senshao Jingchuan suddenly felt like crying but had no tears, and he worked day and night to heal himself. Until Senju Jingchuan suddenly discovered during a night when he was healing himself. My skills suddenly changed. Senju Kagawa opened the patch panel. Name, Senju, Kagamikawa. Sex, male. Age, 4 years old. Sticker value, 666, converted into a lifespan of about 6 days. Skills, Flame, Advanced Healing, Please Don't Die is being unlocked. This lifespan is really auspicious. Senshao Jingchuan clicked on the Please Don't Die button, but it only showed that the conditions for use had not been met. Senju Jingchuan scratched his head in confusion. Is this a hidden skill? But why don't you give a skill introduction? How can I meet the conditions for using it? Senshao Jingchuan asked the system, but the system was unable to give an answer. Senshao Jingchuan gave up exploring further. He decided to let nature take its course. Perhaps the conditions for unlocking it would suddenly be met in the future? Time flies, the weather is getting colder day by day, and winter is getting closer. As the days passed, the war between the Senju and Uchiha remained stalemate. It is already autumn and food is becoming increasingly difficult to obtain. In 2 months it will be winter, and food will only become less and less. Every winter is also the default truce period for various countries. Ninjas are rarely hired, and the ninjas have one less way to obtain supplies. In order to preserve their own strength, the various ninja clans also tacitly cease fire. Now the battle between Senju and Uchiha is not only a battle of dignity, but also a battle for supplies. Whoever wins will be able to demonstrate stronger strength and will be hired by more countries. This is an opportunity to get a lot of hires before winter, a battle for survival. However, the weather was getting colder, and the patriarchs of the 2 tribes, Senju Fusuma and Uchiha Tajima, tacitly announced a ceasefire at the same time to preserve the supplies needed for the winter. In order to obtain as many supplies as possible to maintain the strength of the Senju clan, the clan has been getting busier and busier recently. All ninjas who are old enough to take on missions are rushing to take on missions, including Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju. After the winter, Senju Itama and Wama will be 7 years old. For ninjas of this era, 7 years old is the age to go to the battlefield. Therefore, Senju Itama and Senju Watama must seize every opportunity this winter to learn more life-saving and attacking methods to ensure that they can survive the battlefield. Therefore, except for Senju Jingchuan, the other 4 children in Senju Buddha's room were busy every day. The 4 brothers were busy to varying degrees, which made the lazy Senju Jingchuan start to reflect on himself. Infected by the busy atmosphere in the tribe, Senshao Jingchuan began to help the people in the tribe who did not need to go out on missions to prepare for the distribution and transportation of winter supplies, and helped to make winter clothes and quilts. In his spare time, Senju Jingchuan would fish for 3 days and rest for 2 days to practice physical skills. In the past few days, Qian Shao Jingchuan has been able to see his 4 brothers less and less, and it is almost impossible to get a lot of sticky points. In order to survive, Qian Shao Jingchuan can only catch a rabbit he caught before and try his best to get sticky points. When the last leaf falls from the tree, winter finally arrives. Senju Jingchuan put on thick cotton clothes and felt warmer than ever before this winter. I used to be locked up in that small room with Senju Haruko. Perhaps because it was far away from people, it was difficult to feel warm even with a thick quilt in winter. Senju Kagawa often shivered with cold in the middle of the night. Perhaps it was because Thousand Hand Buddha had been training Thousand Hand Jingchuan over the past year. Thousand Hand Jingchuan's physique had improved a lot now, and a thin layer of muscle had gradually covered his originally thin body. This winter, Senju Jingchuan can drink hot water and warm soup, and when it's cold he can sneak into his brother's bed. This is a feeling he had never experienced before. Senju Kagamikawa, who was an orphan in his previous life, finally felt the warmth of home. Haruko Senju gave Kagamikawa selfless maternal love, and his brothers gave Kagamikawa meticulous care. As for Senju Fusuma, perhaps he was somewhat resentful that Kagamikawa's arrival took away Senju Haruko's last bit of life. His attitude towards Kagamikawa was always like that of a superior to a subordinate, and he never took the initiative to get close to his youngest son. However, Kagami Chuan did not care about Senju Fujian's attitude towards him. He thought it was good enough that Senju Fujian could teach him physical skills. After all, as the patriarch of the clan, Senju Fujian could still take time out of his busy schedule to teach Kagami Chuan, a young boy. In short, this is the warmest winter that Senju Kagami River has ever experienced. Even the gloves that seem hot to wear in summer provide Senju Kagamikawa with plenty of warmth in winter. Speaking of gloves, we have to mention the fire ability sealed by the gloves. In his spare time, Senju Kagawa once went to the outskirts of the Senju clan to practice his fire ability, but strangely, the fire seemed to be sealed like Senju Kagawa's chakra, and could not be used no matter what, even if Senju Kagawa took off his gloves. After many unsuccessful attempts, Senju Jingchuan has gradually given up using his fire ability. Having solved the problem of warmth, Qian Shao Jingchuan is still facing a major problem. Full. Senju Jingchuan hasn't had a full meal for several days now. Perhaps because ninjas do not engage in production, Senju Kagamikawa has never seen cultivated land in the Senju clan's territory, let alone seen the clan members raising livestock. This also resulted in the winter in the ninja world being extremely difficult. Farmers in other countries also relied on the grain harvested in the previous seasons to survive in the winter. Even most of the farmers' grain was handed over to the nobles and daimyo of various countries, leaving no extra grain to sell to the ninjas. Therefore, there are only 2 ways for ninjas to obtain the food they need for the winter. 1. Accept employment from various countries to obtain food. 2. Seize the food reserves of other ninja clans. But this year there happened to be a debuff. The weather was bad, and grain production in many countries decreased, and some even failed to produce a single grain. Under such circumstances, the daimyos of many countries would naturally not choose to hire ninjas with food, and even if the ninjas were rewarded with money, it would be difficult for them to purchase large amounts of food. Therefore, this winter, each ninja clan lived a tight life, and no one had the leisure to provoke other ninja clans. This marked the beginning of a short period of peace in the ninja world. For the large ninja clan, the Senju, although the reserve food is larger than that of other small ninja clans, the Senju clan is basically composed of young and strong men, and their appetites are relatively large. Therefore, it is difficult for the Senju clan to ensure that everyone has enough to eat this winter. They can only ensure that the clan members do not starve to death. At this time, Qian Xiao Jingchuan couldn't help but ask. Why don't the Senju clan produce their own food? We are in a place with fertile land, good rainfall conditions, and sufficient sunlight. Why can't we be self-sufficient? In response to this, Senju Fusuma explained that the young and middle-aged ninjas of the Senju clan had to go out to take mercenary tasks, and the remaining people were old, weak, sick, and disabled and had no ability to cultivate the land. Then why do we have to accept hired tasks to obtain food? Isn't it better to leave the young and strong labor force to farm the land? However, when Qinzhou Jingchuan said this, Qinzhou Fujian actually said righteously. Ninjas are born for missions. Senju Kagawa was very confused and shocked by this. Chapter 7. The Boy Who Can Use Fire Escape. Senju Kagamakuwa didn't expect that even the ninja leader Senju Butsuma thought that ninjas were tools of the daimyo. Jingchuan, who grew up under the red light of socialism in his previous life, said he could not empathize. Kagamakuwa could not understand the thinking of Senju Butsuma and the other ninjas at all. The idea that ninjas are tools is completely unfounded, isn't it? Ninjas have such powerful abilities but they just use themselves as tools of the nobles? Jingchuan was shocked. Host, don't worry too much. This world was originally derived from a comic book. It's normal that the worldview is incomplete. The system explained after hearing Kagamakuwa's doubtful voice. But this is not an incomplete worldview, it's simply weird. Senju Kagamakuwa, who has finally managed to survive in this world, doesn't want to sacrifice his life for this crappy ninja's duty at all. Senju Kagamakuwa went to complain about this to his brothers, but he didn't expect that only Hashirama and Tobirama could sympathize with him. Senju Hashirama said that he also hated such a system, but he didn't know how to change it. The sad Jingchuan's stomach began to rumble again. However, when it was time for dinner, Senju Jingchuan sat at the dining table and lost his appetite instantly when he saw the white radish rice in the bowl in front of him. In his previous life, the food that Senju Jingchuan hated most was radish, whether it was white radish or carrot. Senju Kagamakuwa picked out the white radish from the bowl and poured it all into Senju Hashirama's bowl. Senju Hashirama swallowed the food in his mouth and asked in confusion. Xiao Jingchuan, didn't you say you were hungry before? Why are you giving me so much? Senju Kagamakuwa smiled gently and said to him, Brother Hashirama still has training tomorrow, so eat more. Wow, Kagamakuwa, you're so nice. You're worthy of being my Senju Hashirama's younger brother. Senju Hashirama hugged Senju Kagamakuwa with tears and snot. Hey, brother, Kagamakuwa is obviously a picky eater. Senju Tobirama broke Kagamakuwa's disguise without hesitation. As for why Kagamakuwa chose to give the white radish to Hashirama Senju, it must be because Hashirama Senju was closest to him. Jingchuan, who only ate a small amount of rice, soon became hungry. The 4-year-old Senju Kagamakuwa really has no capital to change the system of the ninja world. Now the 4-year-old brat Senju Kagamakuwa just wants to fill his stomach. Senju Jingchuan once again sneaked to the outskirts of the Senju clan's territory and tried to hunt some prey in the forest. It turns out that there are literally no animals to be found in the winter forest. The bare forest showed no signs of life. The forest in front of him was covered in white, and Senju Jingchuan gave up the idea of hunting. He sat down on the river bank, staring at the frozen ice in a trance. Suddenly, Senju Jingchuan punched out with lightning speed, smashing the ice surface in one fell swoop, revealing the flowing river water and several swimming fish under the ice. Senju Jingchuan caught the fish with his quick eyes and hands. The fish's tails weakly slapped the cold ground, making crisp paw-paw sounds. Having lost their water source, the fish gradually lost their strength and lay completely flat on the shore. Senju Jingchuan found some dry branches and built a simple barbecue grill. He took off his gloves and tried to make a fire, but it was still useless. Senju Jingchuan's face turned red and only a few sparks were produced. Jingchuan was frustrated and was about to find some more materials to practice the authenticity of drilling wood to make fire. Suddenly, Senju Kagamai River heard the laughter of a little boy coming from the other side of the river. Senju Jingchuan turned his head and saw a boy with black hair, black eyes, and fair skin. Haha, you are so bad that you can't even control your chakra. The black-haired and black-eyed boy on the other side laughed. Jing Chuan was just admiring the boy's delicacy and good looks, but he didn't expect that the well-behaved boy would laugh at Jing Chuan. Jing Chuan was instantly dissatisfied, and his childish nature overwhelmed the adult's will, and he shouted, "Then you come and try it." The boy on the other side smiled confidently and said, "Watch it." As soon as he finished speaking, he began to form seals with his hands and shouted, "Fire style, great fireball technique." The next second, a huge fireball was spit out from its mouth and burned above the river. In an instant, the ice melted, the river water began to boil, and water vapor rose up instead of the fireball. Jing Chuan couldn't see the little boy clearly because he was hidden behind the misty steam. He could only feel amazed in his heart. The Senju clan has never had a fire-style ninja, and this is the first time that Senju Kagawa has faced the power of fire-style ninja. This huge fireball is even cooler than Senju Kagawa had imagined. "Humph, are you convinced?" I have never lost in fire style." Senju Jing Chuan was convinced. He was not the kind of person who couldn't afford to lose. Looking at the boy's skilled ninjutsu and exquisite clothes, he must be the child of some great ninja clan. Senju Kagamikawa said to the boy, "I admire you. I'm Kagamikawa, can we be friends?" "Izuna." The boy, Izuna, crossed his arms and turned his head slightly. Seeing Izuna's tsundere look, Kagamikawa instantly understood how to deal with such a person. After all, Izuna is a ninja. If you can get close to him, the sticky points you get will always be more than those from pheasants or rabbits, and you might even be able to steal some skills from him. Children's friendships come and go very quickly, let alone when a thin-skinned tsundere like Izuna meets the thick-skinned and rogue Senju Kagamikawa. With the unremitting efforts of Senju Kagamikawa, he and Izumi reluctantly became friends. As the sun sets, a few faint rays of slanting sunlight shine through the treetops onto the ground, forming intermittent fish-scale spots of light. Along with the crackling sound of burning flames came the aroma of grilled fish. Senju Kagamikawa watched the heat, skewered the fish with branches, sprinkled it with homemade seasoning, and handed it to Izuna. "I'm a good griller. Come and smell it." "Are you intoxicated by the fragrance?" Jing Chuan asked with a smile. Although Izuna was extremely greedy, she still put on a proud attitude and said, "I'll give it a try despite my difficulty." When you bite into the crispy fish, you will find that the inside of the grilled fish is soft, tender, and smooth. There are not many fish bones, and the homemade seasoning of Jing Chuan is an ultimate taste enjoyment. Izuna's eyes lit up and she chewed faster involuntarily. The grilled fish at Senju Kagamikawa was really good, even Izuna, who preferred sweet food, couldn't help but eat a few more bites. "Although your ninjutsu is poor, your skill in grilling fish is pretty good. But it might taste better if you add some honey." Izuna praised Senju Kagawa's fish grilling skills and complained about Senju Kagawa's ninja qualities. Senju Kagamikawa couldn't help but complain in his heart. He wanted to learn ninjutsu, but he had no way to circulate chakra. Also, what the hell is grilled fish with honey? "Izuna, your ninjutsu is so powerful, can you teach me?" Kagamikawa came forward and asked. "It seems that you have some talent for learning fire style." Izuna looked up and down at Kagamikawa. Kagamikawa looked at Izuna with sparkling eyes and asked, "So can Izuna teach me?" "You are so stupid, I won't teach you." Izuna refused without hesitation. For ninjas, every ninjutsu needs to be kept secret, so it is impossible for Izumi to teach fire style to Kagamikawa, whom she just met. "Ah? Really? Then can you let me see your hands, Izuna? Let me see how your fire style ninja's hands are so flexible. It looks so troublesome to make hand seals." Kagamikawa had to settle for the next best thing, and this time, Izuna, who was too embarrassed to refuse him, agreed. Kagamikawa successfully heard the prompt sound of Tai value +6. She actually contributed the same amount of sticker value as Hashirama. It seems that Izuna is also an important character in the comics. Kagamikawa touched Izuna's hand and praised him, making Izuna feel dizzy with praise. Chapter 8. Who is the protagonist? Kagamikawa caught a few more fish to repay Izuna. After saying goodbye to Izuna, Kagamikawa carried the remaining fish back to the Senju clan's territory. Jing Chuan first left 2 fish at home, and then took the remaining 4 or 5 fish to find Senju Fujian. Qian Shao Fujian was handling clan affairs at this time, and suddenly he smelled a fishy smell. He looked up and saw Jing Chuan. "Father, this is the fish I just caught. Please have someone cook it and share it with the tribesmen." Jing Chuan smiled obediently. Who would have thought that Qian Shaofujian not only did not praise Jing Chuan, but was furious. "Where did you catch this fish?" "In the river outside the clan's territory. Don't go next time." Thousand-handed Buddha frowned and looked at Jing Chuan. "Why? Nanhe River is the border between Senju and Uchiha. Who knows if there are Uchiha ambushing there? If you attract the Uchiha, you will be the sinner of Senju. This time, I won't punish you because you want to improve the lives of your people by fishing." "Uchiha?" It seems that the boy might be Uchiha. Kagamakuwa ignored what Senju Butsuma said next and was thinking about his own things. "Okay, father, I understand." Senju Jingchuan replied perfunctorily. Senju Butsuma asked Kagamakuwa to put the fish down and then continued to handle official business. After returning home, Senju Kagamakuwa made the remaining 2 fish into braised fish without saying a word and served it on the dining table. "What a nice smell! Have you eaten yet?" Senju Wajian walked to the dining table sleepily, apparently awakened by the smell. "It smells so good. Kagamakuwa, how come there is fish in our house? Did you cook this?" Senju Itama asked Kagamakuwa while picking up chopsticks and tasting the fish. "It's delicious. Jing Chuan, you are so amazing." Banjian, who just tasted the fish, couldn't help but his eyes lit up, and immediately picked up another big piece. "Delicious, delicious." Senju Wajian also immediately joined the battle. "Itama, you've already eaten so much, let me eat more." "Brother Wajian, you are the older brother, you should give way to me, your younger brother." The 2 of them each picked up a pair of chopsticks and immediately started a fish-eating war. Jing Chuan laughed in silence. He was very happy to see that the fish he cooked was so popular, but he also remembered to ask them to eat slowly to avoid getting stuck by fish bones. "Warma nii, Itama nii, you 2 should eat slowly and leave some for Hashirama nii and Tobirama nii." As for Thousand-handed Buddha, Jing Chuan didn't want to leave any food for him. Who made him not only didn't thank Jing Chuan but scolded Jing Chuan instead. Before Kagamakuwa finished his words, the voices of Hashirama Senju and Tobirama Senju came from outside the door, sounding very excited. "Wajian Banjian Kagamigawa. Fish soup is being distributed at the clan center. Go and have some fish soup." "Hey! Why does the house smell so good?" As soon as Hashirama stepped into the room, he found a sumptuous meal on the table. "Haha, Kagamigawa caught a fish, we are blessed tonight." Wajian invited Senju Hashirama to eat fish. Hashirama laughed and said, "So Kagamakuwa caught the fish." During the meal, Kagamakuwa asked his brothers about the Uchiha clan. "The Uchiha clan? It's a powerful ninja clan." Senju Hashirama thought about it and gave a fair evaluation of the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha clan's bloodline limit is the Sharingan. They are good at illusions and are an evil clan. When the Uchiha clan was mentioned, Senju Tobirama frowned in disgust. "Uchiha is the enemy of Senju. I met Uchiha the first time I went to the battlefield." Senju Kawarama added. The brothers were discussing with each other, but it was all about how powerful and evil the Uchiha clan was. No one mentioned the appearance and ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan. Are there any common features in the appearance of the Uchiha clan? What are the characteristics of ninjutsu? Senju Kagamakuwa asked. After staying in the Senju tribe for so long, Senju Jingchuan gradually realized that most of the Senju people were tall and had many similarities in appearance. A child with a delicate appearance like Jingchuan was out of place with the Senju clan. The Senju clan is usually good at water-style ninjutsu and earth-style ninjutsu, so the Uchiha clan should also have ninjutsu that they are good at. As for their appearance, Senju Hashirama recalled, the Uchiha clan usually have black hair and black eyes, very white skin, and they are all very good looking. Uchiha is good at fire escape and lightning escape. Senju Tobirama added, their Sharingan can be upgraded from 1 Megatama to 3 Megatama. The Sharingan can help them use illusions to the greatest extent. If you encounter an Uchiha on the battlefield, be sure not to look directly into their red Sharingan. In terms of illusion, there are few ninjas who can beat the Uchiha. Through the popularization of science by several brothers, Kagamakuwa basically understood the Uchiha clan. He is now very sure that Izuna should be a member of the Uchiha clan. If Izuna was a member of the Uchiha clan that could compete with the Senju clan, then it would be understandable that she contributed so much value to the Senju Kagamigawa all at once. System, who is the protagonist of this comic? Jing Chuan finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. The system is restricted by authority and cannot reveal the main content of the comic. The electronic mechanical sound of the system sounded in Senju Kagawa's mind. It's just talking about a character, it doesn't count as leaking the contents of the comics. Kagamakiwa still asked persistently. Ding. Information error. Ding. The host does not have permission. The system can only answer the host. You have already met the protagonist. Already met the protagonist? Senju Jingchuan suddenly became excited. There may be a comic protagonist around you. Then as long as you hold on to the protagonist's thigh, won't you be able to live well until the end? Jingchuan began to take stock of all the people he had met since he traveled through time. If you think about it carefully, the one with the highest single contribution value is probably the protagonist. Currently, the single contribution values of Hashirama Senju, Tobirama Senju, and Uchiha Izuna are all, and the protagonist is very likely one of them. Tobirama Senju has a serious personality, a high IQ, a love of research, and most importantly, he is good-looking. He is very likely to be the protagonist of the comics. But if you think about it carefully, if it is a hot-blooded youth manga, a silly, stupid but very powerful character like the eldest brother Senju Hashirama could also be the protagonist. After all, the most important thing about boys' comics is passion. But the possibility that the protagonist is Uchiha Izuna is not small. The Uchiha clan's Sharingan setting is too manipulable. Not only is it a natural golden finger, there may be other special plots. But if Uchiha Izuna is the protagonist, the Senju clan, which is hostile to the Uchiha clan, will be in danger, and Senju Kagamakiwa, who is a member of the Senju clan, will be even more dangerous. The more Senju Kagamakiwa thought about it, the more he felt that there was a high possibility that Uchiha Izuna was the protagonist. For the sake of his own life, Kagamakiwa decided to hold on to Uchiha's thighs tightly. Chapter 9. The Wrong Mission. Winter in the ninja world ends exceptionally quickly. Before even taking off their winter clothes, the ninjas of the Senju clan begin accepting mercenary missions. Senju Kagawa, who was almost 5 years old, was also sent by Senju Bujian to carry out the mission. It's too fast. Kagamakiwa has to go on a mission before he's even 5 years old. Hashirama Senju couldn't help but sigh as he helped Kagamakiwa organize his blades. Kagamakiwa's physical skills are already very powerful. Senju needs combat power, not a child. This is a simple escort mission. Our first mission will also be of this type, right? Senju Tobirama explained. Haha, don't worry, brother Hashirama, I'm very powerful. Senju Kagamakiwa was eager to try. This was his first time to go on a mission as a ninja. Since it is a simple escort mission, there is definitely no life-threatening danger. Right now, Senju Kagamakiwa is very curious about the ninja mission. Since Kagamakiwa's brothers also had their own missions, the one who took Senju Kagamakiwa to familiarize himself with the mission this time was a young man from the Senju clan. When Senju Jingchuan arrived, he discovered that this young man was actually the seriously injured patient he had cured before. During this meeting, Kagamakiwa learned that the man's name was Senju Chinj. When he heard that this was Kagamakiwa's first mission, he volunteered to come. My benefactor, don't worry, I will escort you back to Qianshao safely. Qianshao Chinj promised with a smile. Don't call me benefactor, call me Jingchuan. Our mission this time is not to escort me, brother Chinj, don't mistake your employer. Senshao Jingchuan joked. Kagamakiwa's mission this time is to escort a noble mother and son from the Fire Country to visit relatives in the Lightning Country. Since the people they are escorting are nobles, Senju has brought several powerful ninjas this time. Kagamakiwa and Senju Chinj walked together towards the nobles' team of carriages. Seeing the huge team, Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect that just for a visit to relatives, this noble brought several carts of treasures. Originally, Senju Jingchuan thought that Senju was making a fuss by sending so many ninjas to escort the treasures, but when he saw the carts of jewels, Jingchuan suddenly felt that it was not an exaggeration at all. As soon as he approached the leading carriage, Jingchuan heard a child crying. No. Mother. I want his scroll. Xiao Shi, be good and don't delay the ninja master. I saw a boy of 5 or 6 years old leaning half of his body out of the carriage, tightly grabbing the scroll in the hand of a thousand-handed ninja. The thousand-handed ninja held the scroll with an embarrassed expression. Through the carriage window, you can see a beautiful woman holding the boy and trying to persuade him. A maid standing beside the carriage was also protecting the boy's safety and persuading him to let go. Senju Jingchuan moved closer and saw that the boy was still crying and refused to let go. "Little brother, why do you want the ninjutsu scroll?" Senju Kagawa asked puzzledly. The little boy ignored Senju Jingchuan and continued crying. "Excuse me, fellow ninjas. Xioxi has seldom been out of the house. When she saw your majestic swordsmanship for the first time, she couldn't help but want to snatch the scroll that sealed the sword. It was really rude." The noble lady in the 12-piece kimono nodded slightly to apologize. "Xiao, she just thinks that things outside are new and interesting," the noble lady added. Hearing the woman say this, Jingchuan thought for a moment and turned to pick up some grass and leaves from the grass next to him, and with his nimble fingers he weaved a grasshopper out. "Xiao Shi, look, a grasshopper." Jingchuan put the grasshopper in the palm of his hand and showed it to the boy. Seeing that the boy's attention was attracted, he immediately put the grasshopper on the ground and pulled it, and the grasshopper ran forward all of a sudden. "Grasshopper! The grasshopper can move! Mother, I want it!" The boy immediately ignored the ninja scroll and turned to look for the disappearing grasshopper with his eyes. Jingchuan found the grasshopper and handed it to the boy. The boy stopped crying immediately and sat obediently in the carriage to play with the grasshopper. Without the boy's disturbance, the convoy was finally able to set off. Jingchuan is really something. It turns out that children know best how to comfort children. Qian Shaoqing smiled and patted Jingchuan's shoulder. As the escort mission required them to take care of the mother and child in the carriage, Senju Jingchuan and his men moved very slowly, but this just allowed Senju Jingchuan to rest during these days and nights of walking. Asking a child under 5 years old to cross several countries and walk for several days and nights was still difficult for Senju Jingchuan, even though Jingchuan's physical strength was much better than that of an ordinary child. "Since we set out late, we arrived at noon after only 2 hours of walking." The group found a safe place to rest and took out the dry food they had prepared and started eating. Senju Kagamikawa was eating a steamed bun while admiring the scenery of the border of the fire country, and chatting with Senju Chinj. The maid I had seen before ran over and said breathlessly, "Master Ninja, Madam asks you to go sit in the car for a while." Senju Kagawa looked at her and asked uncertainly, "Me?" "Yes, Master Ninja, you have been very quiet on this journey, young master. Madam wants to repay you, so she invites you to rest in the car." Senju Kagamikawa followed the maid to the carriage and got in after getting consent. Ninja-sama has worked so hard, going out on missions at such a young age. The noble lady sighed, covering her face with her sleeves. "Ma'am, you don't have to call me Ninja-sama. My name is Kagamikawa." After hearing Senju Kagamikawa's voice, the boy who was originally immersed in playing with grasshoppers suddenly looked up, and then shouted, "My name is Xioxi." Jingchuan was startled by Xioxi's sudden behavior. This time he carefully observed Xioxi's expression and found that his eyes were very dull and his expression was wooden. The noble lady touched Xioxi's head, hugged him in her arms, and smiled apologetically at Jingchuan. "I'm sorry to have made you laugh, Jingchuan-kun. Xioxi has not been very smart since she was young. She has offended me before." No, brother Xioxi is very cute." Senju Jingchuan made a few small toys with grass and leaves for Xioxi to play with. When it was time to depart, Jingchuan wanted to get off the car and continue walking, but the noble lady asked him to stay in the car. Jingchuan-kun is 1 year younger than Xioxi, and he is still a child. Please ask Jingchuan-kun to accompany Xioxi and me in the car to relieve our boredom." After hearing this, Senju Jingchuan continued to sit in the carriage. It was indeed tiring to keep walking. But now that he is sitting here, he can feel something is wrong even more, and an ominous premonition has been lingering in Jingchuan's heart. Not to mention that Xioxi looked obviously abnormal. The noble lady asked him to get in the car and rest, perhaps because she was really grateful to him, but let's not talk about that for now. For example, a noble lady traveled across the country to visit relatives with a child. There were several boxes of jewelry in the convoy, and she was only accompanied by a maid to serve her. Would a noble be so careless? This noble lady doesn't look unpopular, so how could she travel so casually? Could it be that this lady trusts ninjas so much? Senshao Jingchuan couldn't figure it out, he just felt strange from the bottom of his heart. Senju Jingchuan trusts his intuition very much, and his intuition has helped him avoid many disasters. But he really didn't notice anything wrong, and he couldn't suddenly get off the car and tell the Senju ninja that his instinct told him that there was something wrong with the mission. Chapter 10. Enemy Attack. Madam, why do you only have a maid with you when you travel? Why don't you send more warriors with so many treasures? Jingchuan still couldn't suppress his curiosity. It seemed normal for a child to be a little curious. The noble lady was stunned. She obviously didn't expect that a little kid like him would find this loophole. After all, so many thousand-hand ninjas outside didn't notice anything wrong. She thought for a moment, then explained. It is precisely because of my concern that I hired so many ninjas. I believe that the Senju ninjas will be able to escort us safely to the land of lightning. Then why do you want to expose the treasure? Wouldn't it be easy to attract bandits? Senju Jingchuan asked. The noble lady's smile froze and she did not answer this time. She handed Senju Kagamikawa an exquisite dessert and said, Kagamikawa-kun, guess why this is? The noble lady's guilty behavior made Jingchuan even more certain that there was something wrong with this escort mission. Senju Kagamikawa was staring at the snack in his hand in thought, when the noble lady suddenly asked. Kamikawa-kun, don't you want to try it? Senju Kagawa thought, how dare I eat the food you give me? Senju Kagamikawa was about to say, this is the first time I have seen such exquisite snacks. I plan to take them home and share them with my brothers. Suddenly, Zioxi, who was quietly playing with a grasshopper, put down the grasshopper in his hand and looked at Kinjo Jingchuan with vicious eyes. Then, Zioxi snatched the snack from Jingchuan's hand and stuffed it into her mouth. The action was so rough that Senju Jingchuan couldn't react. Zioxi chewed the snack and swallowed it, her expression half laughing and half crying. She shouted. Mom, I like this snack the most. Don't give it to him. He cried out, and crumbs of pastry flew out of his mouth and fell on the floor of the carriage. Looking at Zioxi, who seemed like a madman, Senshao Jingchuan couldn't help but shiver. What happened to this child? Seeing that Zioxi was about to start crying again, the noble lady immediately took another snack to cover his mouth and coaxed him. Don't cry, don't cry. Okay, the snacks are all yours. But this time, Zioxi was obviously not as easy to coax as she was at the beginning. The dim sum was like a sharp blade that punctured a balloon, causing Zioxi's dissatisfaction to burst like a balloon. Xiao Shi was held in the noble lady's arms, but he still waved his hands around and kicked his legs everywhere, leaving marks on the noble lady's neat 12 sheets. He kicked and screamed, his tears flowing freely and mixing with his snot to stain his face. While crying, he did not forget to wipe his face on the noble lady's sleeve. The noble lady's expression froze for a moment, but she couldn't get angry because of Senju Jingchuan's presence. She took a deep breath and continued to comfort Zioxi in a firm tone. Xiao Shi, stop crying. Your father will be unhappy if he knows you've been naughty again. Hearing this, Zioxi stopped crying for a moment, but the next second he started pushing the noble lady again. No, no. I don't want him here. I hate him. Senju Jingchuan had seen enough of this farce and knew that if he stayed here any longer it would not end well, so he got off the carriage with the consent of the noble lady. Shortly after coming down from the Senju Mirror River, Zioxi's voice gradually became lower, and she sounded like she had compromised. The maid who was originally accompanying the carriage got on, probably to help the noble lady tidy up her clothes. Senju Jingchuan deliberately walked slower, slowly moving from the front of the team to the back of the convoy, where the cars were transporting the boxes of jewelry. Only when I got closer to Senju Jingchuan did I discover that there were strange patterns printed on the jewelry box. It looks like a sickle-shaped pattern extending from the bottom of the character. Senju Jingchuan looked up. It was just afternoon and the sun was shining brightly. The sunlight shone on the exposed jewels, reflecting a dazzling light. It's too dazzling. Senju Kagamikawa thought, won't this attract bandits to rob? Seeing the thousand-hand ninja beside him, Kagamikawa asked. Do nobles like to show off their jewels? Aren't they afraid that their jewels will be stolen? The dark-skinned thousand hands ninja smiled and said. Some nobles would like to wrap their jewelry tightly for fear that it would be discovered by the escorting ninja. However, some nobles like to show off their jewelry, which often attracts bandits and thieves. He thought for a moment and added, but since we have been hired to escort them, the ninjas who have accepted the mission must protect these jewels no matter what. Senju Jingchuan nodded thoughtfully. It sounded like these nobles were simply fearless. However, Jingchuan still felt that there was something fishy about this matter. He moved closer to the box containing the jewelry and discovered that the box was not actually black, but a very dark blood color. If he smelled it carefully, he could smell a strange fragrance. After smelling it a few times, Senju Jingchuan felt dizzy, so he quickly moved away from the box. The smell became fainter as he got a little further away, but it still lingered in Jingchuan's nose, making him feel a little uncomfortable. You've been standing by the box for so long. Do you smell anything? Kagomikawa looked up and asked the dark-skinned thousand-handed ninja. The thousand hands ninja leaned close to the box and took a few deep breaths, then answered in confusion. No, what's wrong? Senshao Jingchuan shook his head and felt even more puzzled. Why was he the only one who could smell this scent? Next, Jingchuan moved closer to several other boxes in the same way, but did not smell the same smell on those boxes. Is it a coincidence? But Senju Kagomikawa asked a few Senju ninjas to smell the first box, and they all said they didn't smell anything. When Senshao Jingchuan returned to the first box, he still smelled that strange fragrance, but it was much fainter. Senju Jingchuan found Senju Chinj and told him something was wrong along the way. Senju Chinj was just stunned for a moment, then asked him in confusion if he was overthinking it. Senju Chinj is a perception-type ninja. Logically, he should be able to detect any abnormalities, but he did not find anything abnormal. Seeing Senju Chinj's reaction, Kagomikawa knew that it would be useless to look for other ninjas, so he had to give up and went back to the first box. As they walked, they came to a winding mountain road, with large and small stones everywhere on the road. Perhaps because the road was too bumpy and the jewelry box was too full, a jade pendant fell from the top of the box. Qian Shao Jingchuan picked up the white jade pendant. There were beautiful auspicious clouds carved on the front of the pendant, and a blood-red pattern engraved on the back, the same pattern as on the jewelry box. He calmly held the jade pendant in his hand and quietly put it into the system space. System, what does this pattern mean? What is this strange fragrance? Host, this is something you need to explore, don't rely on the system. This may involve hidden tasks, please explore it on your own. The corner of Senju Jingchuan's mouth twitched. Well, this matter also involves a hidden mission. This damn system, I really don't know what the purpose of this system is for him to travel through time and space. Is it to make his golden fingers reasonable? But aren't his current golden fingers half-baked? Forget it, I still have to rely on myself for all this. When they reached the middle of the mountain, Qian Shaocheng he suddenly ordered the team to stop and shouted hurriedly, enemy attack. As soon as he finished speaking, several large rocks rolled down from the mountain. The leading Thousand Hands ninja hurriedly used earth escape to block the rocks, and the rocks fell off the cliff. Immediately afterwards, countless flaming arrows were shot at the convoy. The Thousand Hand ninjas protected and dodged while protecting the convoy. 2 arrows broke through the siege and shot towards Senju Jingchuan. Ding! Ding! With 2 sounds, 2 kunao knocked the arrows down. Senju Jingchuan looked up and saw it was Senju Chinj. He ran to Jingchuan and told him to hide well. Senju Jingchuan, who only knows physical skills, will naturally hide well. Then, the enemies who had used up their hidden arrows rushed over to fight against the Thousand Hand ninja. Senju Kagomikawa held a kunao and fought against several bandits. Those bandits were so skilled that they were like ninjas. Jingchuan was having a hard time, but luckily Senju Chinj helped him share the burden. A scream came from the carriage where the noble lady was. Chapter 11. Fierce Battle. Senju Jingchuan, who had killed several enemies, was closest to the carriage. When Senju Jingchuan rushed over, he saw that the maid's neck had been twisted, and several bandits were opening the curtain of the carriage and grabbing Zioxi. Zioxi, who had been crying before, was surprisingly quiet, and Jingchuan's nose was filled with that strange fragrance again. Senju Kagomikawa held the kunao in his hand and stabbed the arm that was holding Zioxi. Then Kagomikawa's hand slid upwards and scratched his neck when he was caught off guard. Seeing this, the bandit immediately changed his target and stabbed Jingchuan in the face with the big knife in his uninjured left hand. Jing Chuan reacted quickly and dodged by looking up. The bandit continued to chase him and slashed downward with his knife. Jing Chuan couldn't dodge in time and could only block with kunao in both hands, but how could a 4-year-old child be stronger than an adult man? The bandit exerted force and the heavy knife slashed down. Jing Chuan still tried his best to block with the kunao while turning his head to the side. The big knife hit Jing Chuan's right shoulder. Jing Chuan, who had reduced his sense of pain, just groaned, and suddenly good fortune came to him. Sen Shao Jing Chuan kicked the bandit in the lower body, and the bandit's back suddenly arched. Now he could no longer care about Sen Shao Jing Chuan. The bandit lost his strength due to the pain, and Jing Chuan took the opportunity to drop his sword and roll aside. At this time, Senju Chinj arrived and delivered a fatal blow, cutting the bandit's throat. "Are you okay?" asked Qian Shaochinj. "It's okay." Senju Jing Chuan shook his head, placed his left hand on his right shoulder and performed a healing technique. At this time, the bandits had suffered heavy casualties, and the remaining people saw that the situation was hopeless and ran away crawling. After recovering, Senju Jing Chuan's adrenaline, which had surged due to the crisis he had just experienced, dropped. He looked at the broken limbs mixed with blood and internal organs on the ground and felt dizzy in an instant. In addition to the disgusting smell of blood, Jing Chuan also smelled a strange fragrance that made him dizzy. Sen Shao Jing Chuan suddenly felt dizzy and vomited all over the place. He wished he could vomit out all the food he had eaten yesterday and the day before yesterday. By the end of the vomiting, nothing could come out anymore, only stomach acid was still flooding in my mouth. Qian Shaochinj saw that Jing Chuan had almost finished vomiting, so he handed him some water and said, "I was about your age when I first went to the battlefield, and I felt sick just like you. But soon I couldn't vomit anymore because there were too many enemies. In order to survive, I had to keep killing people." Senju Jing Chuan spat out the mouthwash in his mouth, drank a few sips of water, and slumped on the ground. He looked at Senju Chinj squatting in front of him with a pale face, and couldn't stop cursing in his heart. What a fucking world! How can there be a world where children are sent to fight on the battlefield? In his previous life, Jing Chuan, who had always been basking in the sunshine of socialism even as an orphan, had picked up garbage, slept under bridges, and gone hungry, but he had never experienced war or killed anyone. Before today, Kagamikawa had never had a concrete concept of the ninja world, nor did he have any concept of war. But now only one thought came to his mind. It's a fucking terrible world. Can he really survive to old age? Sen Shao Jing Chuan couldn't figure it out, and didn't dare to think about it anymore. He just wanted to curse loudly at this world, a world that forced children to take up weapons and go to war. After a while, Senju Jing Chuan accepted his fate. He is already a part of this terrible world and he will experience these things often in the future. I didn't kill anyone myself today, but I will in the future. He has to learn to adapt to this environment or change it. Now that he has no abilities, Senju Jing Chuan can only adapt to this environment. After relaxing for a while, Senju Jing Chuan stood up and treated everyone. In this battle, all the ninjas of the Senju clan were injured to varying degrees, but they were all still alive, which was the only consolation. After treating them, Senju Jing Chuan harvested another batch of sticking points and healing points. After resting for a while, they had to continue on their way. After all, it was too dangerous to stop halfway up the mountain to rest. The earth and water escape techniques they had just used to block had caused a part of the mountain to loosen. So Qian Shao Jing Chuan endured the blood all over his body and continued on his way. He just wanted to find a river to take a bath as soon as possible. He really couldn't stand the sticky and smelly blood on his body. Jing Chuan calmed down and moved closer to the carriage where the noble lady and Zioxi were, but this time he could no longer smell the strange fragrance. Jing Chuan was confused. He did smell a strong strange fragrance during the battle with the bandits just now, but now he could not smell anything at all. Weird, really weird. Zioxi, who was crazy before, didn't even cry or scream when her life was in danger just now. Sen Shao Jing Chuan recalled carefully and found that Zioxi not only did not cry or shout, he didn't even have any expression. He looked dazed and stupid, with a very numb expression. Even the noble lady did not scream from beginning to end. Even if she had seen big situations and was relatively calm, she was too calm when her life was threatened. A weak noble lady, who only brought a maid with her, no samurai, and only hired less than 10 ninjas. If we encounter a situation like today where we are outnumbered by the enemy again, wouldn't it be very dangerous? The more he thought about it, the more terrifying the gentle smile on the face of the noble lady in Senju Jingchuan's memory seemed. Senshao Jingchuan shuddered suddenly and stopped thinking about it. There are too few clues now, and even if Senju Jingchuan racks his brains he can't figure out anything. After Senju Jingchuan and his group reached the top of the mountain, the sky gradually became dark, with dark clouds rolling in, and it looked like it was going to rain. Fortunately, the top of the mountain was relatively flat. They found a place with dense branches and leaves. The Thousand Hands ninja used earth escape to build a shelter and planned to rest here for one night. Sure enough, after the group settled down, the sky became darker and darker. Soon, the sky above their heads was covered with dark clouds, thunder and lightning roared, and heavy rain began to fall. Heavy rain will cover all traces. The blood will be mixed with the mud and washed away by the heavy rain. The weather changes so quickly. It was sunny just now, but now it is raining heavily. Senju Jingchuan sighed. The heavy rain and the fresh smell brought by the forest made his restless heart return to peace. Senju Jingchuan likes rain, and likes the fresh smell of rain, which makes him feel that all his sins are washed away by the rain. However, it is clearly the transition period between winter and spring, yet it rains so heavily and suddenly. Qian Shaocheng he reached out to catch a few drops of rain and explained. After we pass this mountain, we will reach the land of thunder. It rains all year round outside the land of thunder, and there are often thunderstorms and clouds in the country. We are in this border area, and it is very common for it to rain and thunder here. Then, Senju Qinj introduced other countries to Jingchuan. The Fire Kingdom has 4 seasons like spring, the Thunder Kingdom has lightning and thunder, the Wind Kingdom has raging sandstorms, the Earth Kingdom has rocky forests, and the Water Kingdom is surrounded by water. Senju Kagamikawa nodded, and couldn't help but sigh that the countries in the ninja world were truly diverse. Chapter 12. The Birth of the Monster. After a night, the rain gradually stopped, and the group set out on the journey to the land of thunder again. At dusk, the Senju ninjas found their destination according to the instructions of the noble lady. It was a small town on the edge of the city. There are lightning and thunder here all year round. Even on a clear winter day, you can vaguely see lightning jumping in the sky, roaring from time to time, and tiny silvery white lightning shuttles through the clouds dyed yellow by the setting sun. It was the first time that Senju Jingchuan saw such a strange sight. After arriving, the noble lady's father came to receive her. He looked to be about 50 or 60 years old, with his hair in the popular top bun, a long beard, and looked very kind. Senju Kagamikawa couldn't help but close his eyes when he saw the old man's hairstyle. He really thought that the top knot was too ugly. The old man invited the Senju ninja to stay in his mansion for one night. It was already late in the day, and the Thousand Hands ninja had been traveling all the way, so he was indeed a little tired, so he accepted the invitation. "Oh, my dear grandson, I haven't seen you for a long time. I missed you so much." As soon as the old man saw Zioxi getting off the carriage, he immediately rushed over, picked Zioxi up, and kissed his little face eagerly. Zioxi, who originally had a numb expression, became like a normal child with lively eyes the moment the old man approached. Zioxi, who was tickled by the old man's beard, giggled and dodged the old man's chin to avoid having his face rubbed, while at the same time he couldn't help reaching out to grab the old man's long beard. Senshao Jingchuan watched for a long time but didn't find any problems in their relationship. They looked like an ordinary grandparents and grandchildren. Senju Jingchuan climbed to the roof, lay on the tiles with his head resting on his hands, and stared in a daze at the sky that was gradually darkening. After a while, there was a sound beside him. Senju Kagawa turned around and found it was Senju Qinj. Qian Shaoqinj sat next to Jingchuan and said, "Aren't you going to eat? No one saw you just now, so I came to the yard to look for you. I didn't expect you to be here enjoying the scenery. Aren't you going to eat either?" Senju Jingchuan asked back. "I've eaten some dry food before, so I'm not hungry. How about you? You're growing up, right? Don't you want to eat some meat?" Qian Shaocheng he suddenly thought of something, and added with a smile, "I remember you caught some fish not long ago. We'll have some fish tonight, won't you go and eat some?" When Senju Jingchuan heard him say this, the corners of his mouth twitched, and he knew in his heart that Senju Qinj was teasing him. But he really couldn't laugh now. The closer it got to night, the more he felt the uneasiness in his heart growing stronger. He couldn't help but say to Qian Shao Cheng He. I still feel like something is wrong, and I'm always feeling panicky. Senju Chinj frowned and looked at him, but this time he did not refute Jing Chuan. He was silent for a while, then released his chakra to sense for a while, and finally answered Jing Chuan. Maybe you're right. I feel like something is very wrong here. At the same time, a bloody ritual was taking place in a hidden underground place in the town. There were only a few kerosene lamps hanging in the dim but empty underground space, and several blackened bloody handprints could be vaguely seen on the walls. Several people were standing in a big circle. Their foreheads, cheeks, and chins were covered with a thick layer of blood plasma. There seemed to be some internal organ debris on the blood plasma, and the color had turned slightly black. The dim firelight occasionally illuminated their faces, and the madness in their eyes was as terrifying as that of evil spirits. There are more than a dozen heads placed in the circle, and if you look closely, they all look like children of 5 or 6 years old. In the very center lay a naked boy with his eyes closed. Blood flowed from his limbs into 4 blood grooves on the ground, and then gathered into the circle of heads. After a while, blood began to flow from all the boy's orifices and his face became paler and paler. Upon closer inspection, the boy turned out to be Zioxi, who was playing with his grandfather just now. When the blood on Zioxi's limbs gradually dried up, the people on the outermost edge suddenly started chanting crazily, and after they finished chanting, they all slashed their own necks in unison. After they fell, the strange formation finally became apparent. Where the blood flowed, a character with a sickle at the bottom was slowly forming. At the same time, the lightning in the sky suddenly turned into a strange purple-red color, and a thick purple-red lightning bolt suddenly struck towards the ground. Purple-red lightning penetrated the ground, splitting the people underground into charred charcoal blocks, leaving only blood all over the ground. The moment Kagamikawa and Senjochinj, who were far away, saw the purple-red lightning, their anxiety reached its peak. Senju Jingchuan stood up suddenly and couldn't help holding his breath. He felt his heartbeat quickening at this moment, a sense of panic spread throughout his body, and his hands and feet felt a little numb. Ding! Warning! Warning! Unknown force invading! Unknown force invading! Urgent tasks are now released. Host, please find the source of the unknown power as soon as possible and let the system destroy it. What the hell? Issuing the task now. You don't even give me any cheat codes, system. Qian Shao Jingchuan cursed in his heart. Host, please do not have a rebellious mentality, please actively complete the hidden task. There will be generous rewards for completing the task. With a boom, another purple-red lightning struck down. In an instant, deafening roars rang out from all over the small town. The roars came from humans, but revealed the savagery of wild beasts. Then, screams of men, women, young and old were heard. The mansion, which had been peaceful just a moment ago, was suddenly filled with roars, screams and cries, and the door of the living room was pushed open in panic by several maids. What is this? After seeing clearly what happened, Qian Shaochinj couldn't help but scream. He was about to go down to investigate when he was frightened and froze. Senju Kagamikawa looked carefully and saw that the Senju ninjas, who had just been toasting each other in the room, now all had blue faces, mouths wide open, and their fingernails had grown much longer and turned black. How can this be called a human? This is clearly a ghost. System. System, come out. What should we do with these monsters? While my thoughts were shaking, several maids were caught up by the evil ghosts and bitten on the neck. In an instant, the maids were assimilated, their faces turned pale and black, their fingernails grew wildly, and they continued to look for living people. System. Please at least give me a golden finger. Stop playing dead, system. In just a few seconds, there was no living person in the entire yard except Jingchuan and Senjochinj. The monsters below seemed to have finally discovered the 2 people on the roof, and they all struggled to climb up. Fortunately, these monsters did not seem to inherit the ninjutsu that the thousand-hand ninja learned during his lifetime, and they only followed their instincts to bite the prey in front of them. Just when Senju Jingchuan felt a little relieved, he saw the monster that had just bitten a few maids suddenly opened its mouth, drooling, revealing sharp teeth, and a dark red object as thick as an adult's wrist was suddenly shot out. That's the monster's mutated tongue. The direction the tongue was shooting towards was exactly where Senju Jingchuan was. Chapter 13. Disgusting monster, stupid system. In a flash, Senju Jingchuan had no time to think and immediately pulled out the kunao from the ninja tool bag at his waist to block the sudden attack. Unexpectedly, the tongue was extremely flexible. The moment the kunao hit the monster's tongue, it was entangled, and a huge suction force sucked the kunao up. The long tongue was covered with a thick layer of mucus, which emitted a disgusting stench. It made Senju Jingchuan dizzy just at an arm's length away. Maybe this stinky mucus is meant to make the opponent faint and then be pulled away by the tongue. The tongue pulled hard and pulled Senju Jingchuan forward. The choice was whether to let go of the kunao and lose balance and fall, or to be pulled towards the monster by the tongue. Senju Kagamakuwa let go without hesitation. He would rather fall into the pile of monsters than be entangled by that tongue. Senju Jingchuan thought, even if he died, he had to find a comfortable way to die. The monster's tongue pulled the kunao back, and Senju Kagamakuwa fell down due to his unstable center of gravity. At this time, Senju Jingchuan's heart was in his throat, and his hands and feet were paralyzed due to excessive fright. He had closed his eyes tightly, waiting for death after weightlessness. Will he fall to his death first or be assimilated by the monster? Senju Kagamakuwa thought inappropriately. He was about to die before he could fully enjoy his new life. Earth escape. Earth formation wall. At the critical moment, Senju Chinj reacted and used the earth escape technique to raise a wall of earth from the ground. The wall just blocked Jingchuan at the edge of the roof, maintaining a posture that was about to fall. Senju Chinj rushed over and tried to pull Jingchuan up, but Senju Jingchuan's limbs were weak and his body was limp, and he couldn't stand up even with help. So Senju Chinj carried Kagamakuwa to a flat place. After retracting his tongue, the monster found that there was a kunao on his tongue. He tilted his head, puzzled for a few seconds, and then became furious. The monster roared angrily, his eyeballs bulged out of his eye sockets due to anger, and were covered with red bloodshot. The earth wall isolated the monsters in the yard, giving Jingchuan and the others a relatively quiet and safe environment. The thrilling events of that night were so terrifying that the hearts of a 4-year-old child and a 17 or 18-year-old young man skipped a beat. Everything that happened was too terrible for them. Senju Jingchuan lay quietly for a while, and finally recovered. He swallowed his saliva, moved his achy throat, turned his head towards Senju Chinj, and said in a hoarse and weak voice. "Thanks, Brother Chinj. If it weren't for you, I would have turned into a disgusting monster like that." Qian Shaochinj's face was still pale. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead due to nervousness and fear, and his voice trembled. "This is necessary. What is going on? How come the world has changed so much after I took a mission? What are these monsters?" Qian Shaochinj murmured, his whole body in a trance. Senju Jingchuan felt his strength slowly recovering. He supported himself on the tiles with his hands and slowly sat up. Senju Jingchuan was still feeling cold all over. He thought of the pastry that the noble lady gave him yesterday, the strange fragrance he smelled, and the fact that he and Senju Chinj did not have dinner at this restaurant tonight. "Brother Chinj, what does this family do? I see that this family is quite wealthy in this small town. Are they local rich people?" Qian Shao Jingchuan asked. Although Senju Chinj did not participate in the dinner, due to the habit of ninja, he also asked around when he arrived at the local area and learned a lot of things. He thought about it and then replied. "This family is a wealthy landlord with several large granaries. Last year's harvest was not very good, and since this family has a lot of land, they can store a lot of grain. This winter, they opened the granaries and distributed a lot of grain to the local people. Because of this, the people love the old man of this family very much. It is said that they want to nominate him as the mayor." Qian Shao Jingchuan closed his eyes. Now everything was in a closed loop. He said in despair. "There may be something wrong with this family's food. Among the Senju ninjas, only you and I did not eat this family's food. The other tribesmen who ate it have undergone mutations. This is the problem." Qian Shaochinj showed horror after hearing this. If there was a problem with the grain stored in the granary by this family, then almost all the people in the entire town would be affected. It is winter now and the Chinese New Year has just passed. Many men, women, old and young who worked outside the province have returned here, and the number of abnormalities has become even greater. Even ninjas have a hard time fighting these monsters, let alone ordinary people. It seems that we have to face a huge number of monsters, and the survivors. Senju fell silent after saying this. System, come out. Stop playing dead. A hidden mission suddenly popped up and almost killed me. Can you at least tell me what the weakness of this monster is? Qian Shaojingchuan now wanted to pull out the system in his mind and beat it up. Since the incident happened too suddenly and endangered the host's life. The system can provide some help and authority, and now informs the host, the evil ghost is afraid of sunlight, and can only be killed by beheading. Being scratched or bitten by the evil ghost may cause the host to be alienated. Afraid of the sun. That means as long as you can make it to daytime, you can take a break. What about the authority? System, you should at least give me some cheat codes. Look at me now, I am useless. I can't use flame, I don't know if my healing ability will work on this virus, and my physical skills are only half-baked. Forget about completing the task and getting rewards. It's even a question whether I can survive now. Qian Shaojingchuan said viciously in his heart, trying his best to get some cheat codes from the system to save his life. I don't know if it was because the system was stuck because it received so many complaints from Senju Jingchuan at once, and it didn't respond for a long time. After a long while, Qian Shaojingchuan almost lost his patience, and the system suddenly gave an answer. Given that the host currently lacks the ability to protect himself, the system has decided to give priority to the host's rewards after the successful completion of some stealth tasks, in order to help the host complete the task. If the host successfully completes the hidden task, the reward will be permanently obtained, otherwise the system will reclaim the reward. Rewards are now being distributed. Distributing rewards. Reward, sun breathing one form round dance. The function of this skill is to emit energy similar to that of the sun to kill evil ghosts. However, the host should note that this skill must be used in conjunction with the breathing method and a special demon slaying sword. Okay. What is the breathing method? What is the demon slaying sword? System, please give me all the cheat codes. Chapter 14. Useless skills? However, this time, no matter how Qian Shaojingchuan called out, the system did not respond at all. Senju Jingchuan gritted his teeth in his heart. Forget it, at least I got a skill from the dog system and learned the monster's weakness. However, at the moment of releasing the skill, Qian Shaojingchuan felt a burning sensation spreading to his limbs and bones, and now he felt that the air he exhaled was hot. Sen Shaojingchuan took a deep breath without any instruction. He felt the inhaled air flow from his nasal cavity to his trachea and finally to his lungs. The air filled his lungs and then stayed there for a long time before passing through his trachea and nasal cavity again and finally being exhaled by Sen Shaojingchuan. The breath that Senju Jingchuan exhaled was very hot, as if it carried Senju Jingchuan's fatigue and numbness from the whole day. After exhaling this breath, Qian Shaojingchuan felt extremely comfortable all over his body, and he couldn't help but sigh. Is this the breathing method? If I can maintain this kind of breathing during a fight, it will be easy to mobilize the strength of my whole body. It seems that the so-called breathing method is a pure physical attack. But what is the sun blade? At this time, Qian Shaojing suddenly took a few steps back, his face somewhat horrified, and he asked anxiously. Kagami-kun, your skin is so red, it's like you have a fever. Senju Kagamikawa had been locked up in a small room for years and had little exposure to the sun, so his skin was pale and bloodless. Even after he was released and his nutrition was more balanced, his skin color did not change much, it just changed from pale to a healthy white. Because of this, the redness in his skin is more obvious. Senju Chinj was a little scared. He had never seen the reactions of those monsters when they mutated, so he felt a little scared and uneasy when he saw Jingchuan's unusual appearance. In this special period, any movement would make Qian Shaocheng and others, who were already in a tense state, see enemies everywhere. Senju Jingchuan was stunned when he heard this. It seemed that the breathing method he just tried also caused some changes in his body. Sen Shaojingchuan touched his forehead and didn't feel anything different. Perhaps because Senju Kagawa was born with the ability of fire, Senju Kagawa's body temperature has always been much higher than that of ordinary people. In the past winters, Senju Haruko often hugged Kagawa as a heater while sleeping. Qian Shaoqing still stayed far away and did not dare to approach Jingchuan. His legs were slightly apart, his body was slightly hunched, his upper body was slightly leaning forward, and his whole body was in a defensive posture. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but laugh when he saw his nervousness. Brother Chinj, don't worry, I'm fine. My temperature has always been high, and now my skin looks red because I'm probably too nervous. Senju Kagawa raised his hands, turned his face towards Senju Chinj, and said frankly. Brother Chinj, do you think I am not as red as before? When Senju Chinj saw that Jingchuan spoke clearly and in an organized manner, the heart that had been hanging in his throat finally settled down. He moved forward with confidence and observed Senju Jingchuan carefully. The moon is now slightly obscured by dark clouds, and the light is dim. But Senju Chinj's eyesight was pretty good, and he could see that Senju Jingchuan's skin color was slowly returning to normal, and soon it returned to fair. Moreover, Qian Shaochinj did not sense any danger signals at this time. So Qian Shaochinj was relieved. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, Hi. Jingchuan, you scared me to death. I thought you also. Senju Jingchuan understood Senju Chinj's fear. This kind of emergency situation was something no one had ever encountered before. It was normal for people to be afraid that teammates who could have faced the unknown together would also become monsters. In fact, not only Senju Chinj was afraid. Now, when Jingchuan thought about the pastry that the noble lady handed to him, he couldn't stop feeling scared. He was glad that he was cautious and didn't eat the pastry, otherwise he would be one of the monsters now. Senshao Jingchuan looked at the sky. The weather was bad tonight and there were few stars. The moon was completely blocked at this moment, so it was impossible to tell how long it would take for dawn. The monster in the yard had been clinging to the wall, struggling to climb up, but after the two of them disappeared, the monster gradually calmed down and now there is no movement. Senju Jingchuan walked behind the earth wall, carefully poked his head out and took a look into the yard, only to see a few monsters wandering around. Kagami Chuan said to Senju Chinj, Brother Chinj, it seems we are safe for the time being. You should take a rest first. I will take a walk. I am in good spirits now and not sleepy at all. Kinju Chinj did not refuse just because Jingchuan was a child. He had been in a state of high tension for so long and was already tired. If he did not have a good rest now, it would be a lot harder for him to deal with the monster again. Therefore, Senju Chinj agreed to Kagamikawa's proposal and fell asleep directly on the spot. Having learned a new breathing method, Senju Jingchuan is now very energetic. He always feels that he is absorbing energy from the air with every breath. He opened the system mall and searched for Sun Wheel Sword. When the result came out, Senju Jingchuan was dumbfounded. There are many types of Sun Blade, and each blade corresponds to a different breath, such as the breath of fire, the breath of water, the breath of mist. But correspondingly, the price is also very high, and the string of zeros at the end is obviously not something that Senshao Jingchuan can afford. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but sigh. What should he do now? Without the sun blade, could the breathing method still be used? Senju Kagawa took out a kunao, intending to test whether he could perform sun breathing first form round dance. He held the kunao tightly as if he were holding a knife, closed his eyes, took a few deep breaths, and then mobilized all his strength to swing the kunao. With a crack, the kunao broke. Crushed into powder. Chapter 15. The Power of the Sun. Senju Kagamikawa saw the kunao fragments all over the ground and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seems that the kunao cannot be used as the sun blade. What should I do? Without the sun blade, this skill is useless, right? Senju Kagawa thought speechlessly. In that case, it would be better not to have this skill. The sky gradually brightened, and a pale sky appeared on the horizon. It seemed that the sun was about to rise. I just hope the weather is good and the sun is bright enough to burn all those evil spirits to death. Senju Kagamikawa continued practicing breathing techniques while thinking. Although sun breathing one form round dance may not be very useful, the whole body power brought by the breathing method will really be of great help to his physical skills. Time passed quickly and soon the sun rose. As a deep red color appeared in the distant sky, the sea of clouds on the horizon was dyed orange and yellow, and the sun rose. Qian Shaocheng he has also woken up now. He had a restless sleep and always felt that the monster would suddenly attack him. However, after sleeping for a few hours, Qian Shaocheng he is now very energetic. Ninjas are always like this. The day and night missions have enabled them to develop a unique skill in which they can regain their energy after just a short sleep. Jingchuan-kun, do you want to take a rest? Your body won't be able to bear keeping your eyes open all the time, right? Senju Chinj asked worriedly. He was really afraid that Senju Jingchuan's 4-year-old body could not withstand the fatigue of a day and a night. However, after practicing the breathing method for several hours, Senju Jingchuan had already learned the full concentration and constant breathing method without any instruction. This breathing method absorbed various energy molecules in the air all the time, making Senju Jingchuan full of energy and not feeling tired at all. Senju Jingchuan felt that he could kill 10 evil spirits with one punch. But gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Senju Jingchuan's stomach suddenly rumbled a few times, as loud as thunder. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help feeling a little shy, and his face turned slightly red. That's right, although Chang Zhong breathing has been absorbing various energies in the air, it has also consumed a lot of energy in his body. Now Senju Jingchuan is very hungry, and he feels that he can eat 10 cows at a time. When Senju Chinj heard Kagamikawa's stomach rumbling, he couldn't help but laugh. He couldn't help laughing and said, I haven't eaten for so long, I'm hungry too. He said this not to ease Senju Kagawa's embarrassment. Senju Chinj, who had been frightened too much the night before, was now extremely hungry. But we may have to go out to find something to eat. I don't have any dry food with me. Qian Shao Chinj said helplessly. Qian Shao Jingchuan thought for a moment, then asked, do you dare to eat the food here, Brother Chinj? Qian Shao Chinj thought about those monsters, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching. I dare not. We may have to look for food on the carriage. Just at this moment, the two heard the wailing of those monsters. Senju Jingchuan saw the sun rising higher and higher in the sky and immediately understood. It seems that the sun has already taken action on these monsters. Kinju Chinj lay on the eaves and looked at the monsters outside the wall. The monster's dark blue skin that was not covered with clothes and exposed to the air immediately caught fire when exposed to the sunlight, and then the flames spread throughout the monster's body. The monster could only wail uncontrollably before being burned to ashes by the growing flames. Only a handful of black charred ash was left scattered in the air, which was blown away by a breeze. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but sneeze when he saw the ashes being blown away by the wind and disappearing into the air. He thought, will I become a monster if I breathe the air that is stained with the corpse of a monster? However, since the sun can destroy the air, it should also be able to destroy human-to-human viruses like monsters, right? Last night it was too dark to see anything, but now in the bright sunlight I can see the monster clearly. I didn't expect it to have a dark green complexion. It didn't look like the evil ghost the system said, but rather like the zombies in the movies that Senju Kagawa watched in his previous life. Senju Chinj also saw the monster turn into ashes. He was surprised and happy at once. It seems that this monster is afraid of sunlight. Then we can go down to look for food without any worries. Senju Jingchuan first checked the situation below before carefully climbing down the escalator next to him. As soon as he got off the roof, Senju Jingchuan was startled. It turned out that there were several monsters wandering around in the house opposite him. Those monsters were originally wandering around without much interest, but once they spotted Thousand Hands Mirror River, they immediately became visibly excited. However, most of the monsters were just eager to try and never crossed the shadow line of the house. Their timid appearance made Senju Jingchuan want to laugh. Only one of the monsters suddenly jumped up and rushed towards Senju Jingchuan with saliva dripping from its mouth. It looked like it was really hungry. Senju Jingchuan hurriedly dodged backwards and quickly drew out a kunao to block his chest. The moment the monster stepped out of the shadow of the room, the sun suddenly shone on his dark blue skin, and his skin suddenly began to burn. The monster screamed and then shrank into the shadow of the house. But this dodging behavior obviously did not help him avoid the power of the sun. The flames on the monster quickly spread all over its body. As expected, he also turned into a handful of black ash. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, it's really funny, they are all hungry, but Senju Jingchuan can come down to look for food, while these monsters who cannot stand the light and are no different from stinky rats in the gutter can only hide in the dark and wait, otherwise they will be killed by the sun. Senju Jingchuan suddenly felt that the depression caused by being trapped on the roof all night disappeared, and now Senju Jingchuan felt more happy than ever. Fortunately, the carriages were parked in the sun, so Senju Jingchuan and his men easily found a place to store the food. Before Senju Jingchuan had time to be happy after finding the place, he discovered that there was no dry food in the food bag and only a few military pills were left. Senju Jingchuan looked at these food pills and suddenly felt like a fool for laughing at those monsters just now. Why was he so happy? He still couldn't even get any food. Senju Jingchuan and Senju Chinj were both speechless for a moment. Suddenly, Senju Jingchuan smelled a faint strange fragrance again. The fragrance was exactly the same as the one Senju Jingchuan had smelled from the noble lady and the box of jewelry before. Qian Shao Jingchuan followed the scent, but found. Chapter 16. The Bad Consequences of the Strange Fragrance. Senju Jingchuan followed the scent to a room with a slightly ajar door. He stopped at the junction of shadow and sunlight in front of the room. Senju Jingchuan raised his head and unexpectedly discovered that the eaves of this room were wider than those of the other rooms. Its shape was like a bird's long outstretched wings, and upon closer inspection, it could be seen that there was a bulge, so the shadow cast on the ground appeared larger than other shadows in the yard. Kamigawa-kun, is there anything wrong with this room? Senju Chinj couldn't help but ask when he saw Kagawa suddenly stop at the door of the room. Unlike Senju Kagamawa, Senju Chinj, who could not smell this strange fragrance, had no idea why Senju Kagamawa suddenly stayed in that room. Brother Chinj, look, the brim of this room is very strange, and the design of the house is also different from other rooms. Senju Jingchuan turned his head and explained to Senju Chinj. After all, Senju Chinj was also a perception-type ninja, and he had a certain degree of observation and sensitivity. Even though he hadn't thought much about it, after Senju Jingchuan's reminder, he also discovered the unusualness of this house. In fact, in addition to the different eaves, the shape of this room is also very different from other rooms. The eaves are so unique, but from the overall perspective, the room is so low-key, as if the eaves only serve as a decoration, making people think that this is a unique design and ignore the uniqueness of the house itself. This is really strange. It's very strange. Senju Chinj's good ninja training made him realize at once that this matter was not simple. They had just guessed that the inexplicable monster seemed to be related to this family. Now, any slight movement would make them extremely alert. Perhaps if we can figure out the whole story, we can find a way to deal with these monsters? After figuring it out, Senju Chinj also walked to the front of the room and stood side by side with Senju Jingchuan. So, do we want to go in and explore, Kagamawa-kun? Senju Chinj took out the candle he carried with him and lit it. Of course. I want to see what secrets this small town holds. Senju Jingchuan agreed without hesitation, pulled off the glove on his right hand, and stepped into the shadow area first. Quiet, too quiet. This isn't right. Qian Shaochinj used the faint flame of a candle to explore the way, but he did not see any monsters in front of him, nor did he hear any sound that might come from a monster. The biggest thing wrong is being too quiet. As for Senju Jingchuan, ever since he stepped into this room, he could smell the strange fragrance which became more and more obvious. The fragrance became stronger and stronger, piercing into Senju Jingchuan's nostrils like a cold winter wind, and then penetrating into his internal organs and limbs. As soon as he smelled the fragrance, Senju Jingchuan couldn't help feeling dizzy, let alone such a strong fragrance. Senju Jingchuan felt as if he had been marinated by this fragrance, and his whole body was emitting this disgusting smell. Senju Jingchuan is now absolutely certain that this room hides a huge secret. The room is not big, it can even be said to be very small. There are only a few tables and decorative ornaments. It looks like just an ordinary small room. Senju Chinj couldn't smell the fragrance, but he had a strong intuition there was definitely something big wrong with this room. Only nothing can be seen from the surface. Is there a secret room? Qian Shaocheng, he thought. He first observed the furnishings in the room, put on gloves to examine them carefully, and then moved closer to the wall of the room, looking for any unusual places inch by inch. Qian Shao Jingchuan tried again and finally determined which direction had the strongest fragrance. He activated his fire ability and immediately felt a warm current flowing from his lungs to his right palm. Swish, Senju Jingchuan's right hand was covered with bright flames, and the sudden light illuminated most of the interior of the room. The flame at this time was obviously different from the small flame some time ago. It seems that the breathing method has also improved my fire ability. Senju Jingchuan thought for a while. After all, when doing the full concentration and constant breathing, Senju Jingchuan felt that the air he breathed contained energy. It was normal that this energy could promote Senju Jingchuan's fire ability. However, at this time, Sen Xiao Jingchuan obviously did not have the time to think too much about this matter. The most urgent task was to find the abnormality. Senju Jingchuan brought the flame close to this part of the wall. The wall was very clean, as if there was nothing on it. Sen Xiao Jingchuan secretly put the left-hand glove into the system space, and then began to feel the wall. Suddenly, the wall caved in, forming the shape of a child's palm print, which almost fit perfectly with Senju Jingchuan's palm. What? What's happening here? There was no time to think carefully, and the next second, a deafening roar resounded through the sky. At the same time, the sky outside suddenly changed from clear to cloudy. The world suddenly became dark. The thick purple-red lightning struck down heavily again. Boom! With the loud roar of thunder and lightning, the originally quiet town suddenly became chaotic, and the monsters roared again, revealing the excitement of returning to freedom. Sen Xiao Jingchuan felt that the wall, which was extremely hard just now, suddenly became soft, and then a huge suction force came. Senju Jingchuan panicked. He tried to pull his left palm out, but felt a stronger suction force. He slammed the wall with his right palm, which was covered in flames. The wall suddenly let out a scream, and the part that was in contact with the flames suddenly became festering and then charred. Before Senju Jingchuan could feel happy, the suction force on his left hand suddenly became stronger. And without any warning, the flame in Senju Jingchuan's right hand went out. Suddenly, a big hole appeared in the wall between the palms. The hole was no longer white, but revealed bright red. The opening was covered in blood, like the mouth of some unknown creature. The hole opened for just a moment, and Sen Xiaochenj, realizing what happened, hurriedly tried to pull Jingchuan, but only touched the corner of Sen Xiao Jingchuan's clothes. Senju Jingchuan was swallowed by that bloody mouth. Qian Xiaochenj could only stagger awkwardly and pounce in front of the wall, looking at the wall that had returned to its flat state with only a charred mark left, at a loss as to what to do. However, Qian Xiaochenj could not remain at a loss like this any longer. Because he will now face a more serious situation. The hungry monsters made peace with the hungry Senju. Purple-red lightning flashed across the dark sky again and struck the monster in the face. The yard was filled with grinning monsters. Also, there is Senjuchenj who is isolated and helpless in the room. Chapter 17. Death Warning. Putting aside the question of how to deal with the critical situation that Senjuchenj encountered, let's just say that after Senju Jingchuan was sucked into the monster-like wall, he felt that he was in a very dark place. There was no light here, you couldn't see your hand in front of you, and there was a strange fragrance in the air. Senju Jingchuan sniffed and held his breath somewhat uncomfortably. In addition to the strange fragrance, the smell here is also mixed with a fishy smell. But the smell was very strange. Even Senju Jingchuan couldn't describe it accurately. It sounded like blood and seafood. In short, it was not pleasant. This disgusting smell was a fatal blow to Senju Jingchuan, who had now learned the full concentration of breathing without any instruction. Especially now that he was in a completely dark environment, his vision was restricted, causing Senju Jingchuan's sense of smell to become more sensitive. It smells really bad. Senju Kagawa complained in his mind. He lit a flame with his hands to provide light, but found that the flame only lasted for a minute before it went out immediately. But how could this be? Sen Xiao Jingchuan knew the power of his own flame. Once it was ignited, the flame would not be extinguished unless the master Sen Xiao Jingchuan absorbed the flame back into his body. Sen Xiao Jingchuan was a little confused, and he asked the system in his heart. The system still ignored him and just told him to explore on his own. Qian Xiao Jingchuan was speechless. What was the use of him traveling through time and space and bringing a system with him? Fortunately, Senju Jingchuan has become accustomed to the system's lack of presence. However, the moment the flame was ignited, it also illuminated a small area around Senju Jingchuan, and Senju Jingchuan saw it. He seemed to be in a large space with a red floor covered with thick folds and layers of mucus. Senju Jingchuan moved his feet tentatively and felt as if the soles of his feet were stuck by something, making it almost impossible for him to move, not even a small step. This mucus is too sticky. Is this the belly of that monster? Senju Jingchuan thought about it and seemed to have seen something similar to that bloody mouth a second before he was sucked in, so he made a bold guess in his heart. But it would be better if he didn't think about it. When he thought that he might be in the belly of that wall monster, Senju Jingchuan felt a chill. The hairs on his body stood up and he felt a chill on his back. And many more. The chill on my back didn't seem to be an imaginary feeling. It seemed as if something really climbed onto Senju Jingchuan's back. That thing was very cold and chilly, as if it was slowly licking Senju Jingchuan's back. The chill extended from Senju Jingchuan's lower back to the back of his neck, and even felt wet. Paste value +1. Senju Jingchuan froze when he realized what the increase in the sticker value meant. He twisted his head back stiffly, as if it was rusty. A strange sound came from all directions. Suddenly, a faint red light suddenly appeared all around and there were bursts of sounds of creatures moving. Under the faint red light, Senju Jingchuan turned his head back and met a glowing red eyeball. The eyeball was connected to a nerve and hung slightly in the only eye socket. After noticing that Senju Jingchuan was looking at itself, the monster's mouth suddenly opened, and it stretched out its slender snake-like tongue and licked Senju Jingchuan's cheek. Senju Jingchuan's heart skipped a beat out of fright. Then, the red light around became brighter and brighter, with a hint of green light mixed in. Senju Jingchuan looked around blankly, but after a closer look he discovered that the red lights were actually emitted from the eyes of the one-eyed monsters. Those monsters had bodies like manta rays, but their entire bodies were glowing with dark green fluorescence. In contrast to their slightly trembling eyeballs that were out of their sockets, the green fluorescence looked particularly dim. Senju Kagawa lost his voice. This densely packed crowd of monsters was so spectacular that Senju Jingchuan couldn't even scream. The monster on his back was still crawling, and Senju Jingchuan finally couldn't bear it anymore. He slapped the disgusting thing down with one hand, leaving a hand covered with mucus. The stomach, which was already extra active due to not having breakfast, started to reflux stomach acid. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but vomit all over the floor. There's no way, this monster is really disgusting. Senju Jingchuan took a deep breath and gathered all the energy in his lungs. System, give me the cheapest Nichiren sword on credit. Ding! After testing, the host has TT values, equivalent to about 107 days of life, and the Sun Blade, pirated version, has been exchanged. The host now has 250 TT values remaining. Please make up the TT values as soon as possible, otherwise your life will be in danger. Senju Kagawa couldn't help but gasp when he heard this. He didn't expect that a pirated Nichiren sword would cost him more than 10,000 points. And the 250 sticker value, isn't that really a mockery of him? Alarm! Alarm! Host, please make up the sticker value within 1 day, otherwise you will face the risk of death. The remaining time now, 24 hours. 2359:59. The beeping sound of the system echoed in Senju Jingchuan's mind, and every tick of the clock would be a death warning. Chapter 18. System, what's going on with these monsters? They feel different from the evil spirits before. At this time, Senju Kagawa had adjusted his mentality, took out the Nichiren sword, pirated version, and remained on hold for the time being. Although these monsters looked disgusting, they just surrounded the Senju Mirror River and did not attack. Even the monster that was slapped off Senju Jingchuan's neck was still wandering around Senju Jingchuan even after it fell to the ground, licking Senju Jingchuan's ankles with its long snake-like red tongue. Senju Jingchuan felt something wet and sticky on his ankles, and a chill rushed from his ankles straight to the top of his head. Senju Jingchuan was so disgusted that he wanted to stomp his feet, but it was in vain. His feet were still firmly stuck to the ground and he couldn't move at all, let alone shake off the disgusting monster. Senju Kagawa resigned himself to his fate and tried his best to ignore the sensation on his feet. I don't know what kind of weird quirk this monster has, why does it like licking people so much? The system was silent for a long time before answering, Host, after system detection, these monsters like you. The monster licking your feet is the king of this group of monsters. Without its command, other monsters dare not come up to lick you. Host, please rest assured. These monsters are the result of the collision between the ninja world and other worlds. They exist in the cracks between time and space and do not carry the evil ghost virus. They have nothing to do with this hidden mission. The system paused and added. After hearing this, Qian Shao Jingchuan was thoughtful. A gap in time and space? If that's the case, then where am I now? Isn't it inside the stomach of that wall monster? The system seemed to be shocked by Senju Kagami's rich imagination. The entire system turned into a string of meaningless garbled codes and flashed for a moment, then said speechlessly. The host is certainly not in the stomach of the wall monster. This is a crack in time and space. And the wall monster the host is talking about is actually just a door connecting to another place, and it is not the evil ghost we need to eliminate. Please stop your outrageous imagination. Sen Xiao Jingchuan always felt that he was being mocked by the system. Even the evil ghost appeared inexplicably. System, you should reflect on yourself. Qian Xiao Jingchuan complained. This time, even the worldview needs to be reshaped. The system went silent. The death countdown and the cold electronic reminder sound Tai value +1 rang in Senju Jingchuan's mind again. Although this monster looks disgusting and has a peculiar habit of licking people, it does provide a lot of stickiness to Senju Jingchuan. Its long snake tongue only licked Senju Jingchuan for a short while, and Senju Jingchuan's stickiness value had already become 225. Senju Jingchuan was just thinking that he could rely on this monster to survive for a few days, when he felt the monster that was originally leaning against Senju Jingchuan's feet suddenly wrapped around Senju Jingchuan's ankle. Senju Jingchuan couldn't stand it anymore. He bent down, grabbed the monster on the ground, then held it in front of his eyes and stared at it. A closer look reveals that this monster has a deep red pattern on its back that looks like the Chinese character for king. Its eyes are redder than those of its peers, and the fluorescent green on its body is more dazzling. Perhaps this is why this monster became the king. Why is it imitating a tiger and printing a king on its back? It looks much uglier than a tiger. Senju Jingchuan couldn't help but mutter in his heart. He didn't know what ability this ghost thing had to pester him for no reason. Although this thing is the king, it only contributes a small value to Senju Jingchuan. Senju Jingchuan really doesn't think it is so unique and powerful. Seeing that Senju Kagawa had been staring at his appearance, the monster king seemed to think that Senju Kagawa liked him, so he twisted his body hard and spread out his wings. Even his eyeballs hanging in the air became brighter and could almost serve as light bulbs. Senju Jingchuan couldn't bear to look at it anymore and turned his eyes away. He couldn't bear to watch it anymore. This thing was ugly to begin with, and now it was twisted like a maggot, which was disgusting. However, the mucus on this thing was really sticky. Just when Senju Jingchuan was about to throw it away, he found that the monster king was firmly stuck to his hand. It seems that all the mucus on the ground comes from these ugly things. System, I'm stuck, what should I do? How can I get out now? Qian Xiao Jingchuan asked the system. Host, I suggest you sign a contract with these space-time rift derivatives. They usually have very strong power. Since they like you so much, don't refuse. The system suggested. Sign a contract? But these things are so ugly, and I don't know why they like me. What if they want to eat me? Also, system, you didn't tell me how to get out at all. How can I complete the hidden task if I don't go out? Qian Xiao Jingchuan complained. He always felt that the system had bad intentions. These things were too ugly and seriously did not match Qian Xiao Jingchuan's aesthetic taste. Host, if you want to know why they like you so much, why not just ask directly? After the system said this, it never responded to Qian Xiao Jingchuan again, no matter how Qian Xiao Jingchuan called out to it. Can these ugly things understand human language? Senju Kagamawa asked with a try-it attitude. Do you like me very much? The monster king held in the hand of Senju Jingchuan heard Senju Jingchuan's question, and shook his body happily. His wings flapped faster, and he couldn't stop making shaha sounds from his mouth. Well, seeing this expression of an ugly thing, it must be that it likes it very much. But this thing obviously can't talk, so how can we communicate? Senju Jingchuan was just confused when he found that the ugly things that were motionless around him suddenly began to wriggle. I saw the fluorescent bodies stacked together in an orderly manner, forming, I like you. Okay, I see, this ugly thing is indeed the king. Then why do you like me? Asked Senju Jingchuan. This time, the monster king stopped shaking its body, and it took a long time before it twisted its body again. The monsters on the ground also form, fire. Do you like my flame? Senju Kagawa pondered. Then, those ugly things formed, I'm hungry. Qian Xiao Jingchuan was dumbfounded. These ugly things like to eat their flames? System, so is it their fault that I can't use my flames? Did they eat them all? Qian Shaojing Chuan hurriedly called the system and asked. Host, don't worry. If you like to eat the space-time rift derivatives, then give them to them. You can't use them anyway. The system replied. Sen Shaojing Chuan was speechless. He always felt that the current system was more annoying than before. Senju Jingchuan once again activated the flame in his body. This time he felt it carefully and found that part of the fire in his body flowed to his left hand holding the Monster King, and part of it flowed to the mucus through his feet. The derivatives of the space-time rifts that felt the flame operated by Senju Jingchuan were obviously much more excited, and the sounds of shaha shaha kept coming to Jingchuan's ears from the surroundings. The Monster King in Senju Kagawa's hand also twisted more happily. Okay, now the case is solved. The reason why Senju Kagamikawa can't use flame is indeed related to these ugly things. But if you think about it carefully, the flame that made many thousand hands people terrified during the war was actually eaten by these derivatives of space-time rifts. This is enough to prove that these ugly things actually have some capabilities. Ugly thing, I want to discuss something with you. The injured Monster King of Senju Jingchuan seemed dissatisfied with Senju Jingchuan calling him like that. He twisted his body violently and then fanned Senju Jingchuan's hand with his fleshy wings. Hiss! Your hit really hurts. Senshao Jingchuan felt his hand suddenly go numb. The Monster King thought that Senju Jingchuan was praising it, and proudly stuck out his tongue. Are you willing to sign a contract with me? Asked Senju Jingchuan. The Monster King excitedly shook his red eyeballs hanging outside his eye sockets. Well, now there's no need for other ugly things to pose as Qian Shao Jingchuan will know that it's willing. Qian Shao Jingchuan was about to make a deal with the Monster King when he suddenly found that the ugly thing in his hand suddenly disappeared. At the same time, his palm suddenly went numb for a moment, and then he felt a chill flowing from his palm to his arm, and finally stopped at his heart. Master, an androgynous child's voice suddenly appeared in Senju Jingchuan's mind. So, does this mean the contract has been signed? Senju Jingchuan didn't understand, but he was shocked. Chapter 19, Thanks from the Devil. The Monster King reappeared in front of Senju Jingchuan and flapped its fleshy wings. Master, let's sign the contract now. I don't like the name Ugly Thing, so please call me Ugly Monster, the Monster King in the mind said in a soft and coquettish voice. When Senju Jingchuan heard this lovely voice and thought of its ugly appearance, he couldn't help but feel a chill. Do you really want to be called Ugly Monster? After recovering from the shock, Senju Jingchuan asked it again. He really didn't understand the difference between the two names. What's more, Ugly Thing sounded cuter. Why was the name Ugly Monster so funny? The Ugly Monster obviously liked its new name very much and insisted on being called this name. No matter how Qian Shao Jingchuan persuaded him, he refused to change it. Okay, if you like to call me Ugly Monster, then call me Ugly Monster. Qian Shao Jingchuan said helplessly. But I have to make 3 rules with you. First of all, you can eat my flame, but you can't make me unable to use it. Secondly, can your appearance be changed? Can your eyeballs be put back into their sockets? Finally, don't let your men lick me casually. Senju Kagawa stated all his requests at once. The ugly monster's eyeballs rolled, paused in the air for a few seconds, and then shrank back into its eye sockets obediently. Then, its manta ray-like body gradually faded from its fluorescent green color, revealing its tender white base color. Then, the ugly monster turned in the air and asked, Master, are you satisfied? Senju Jingchuan nodded with satisfaction. This ugly monster looked quite cute, but why did the other derivatives of the space-time rifts still look so ugly? Senju Jingchuan asked the doubts in his heart. Oh, they are all my clones. They don't have independent thoughts and their abilities are not as strong as mine, so they can't change their appearance. After saying this, all the derivatives of space-time rifts suddenly disappeared, and darkness returned to Senju Jingchuan's eyes. Don't worry, Master. We usually live in the flame around your heart and will not interfere with your use of fire. The ugly monster reappeared and explained to Senshao Jingchuan. With the help of the ugly monster, Senju Jingchuan successfully left the sticky space-time rift. After a dizzy spell, Senju Jingchuan opened his eyes again and found himself suddenly several hundred meters in the air, about to fall with his arms and legs bared. Senju Jingchuan waved his hands in vain in the air, and then fell down. Just when Senju Jingchuan was still a dozen feet above the ground, he saw several monsters surrounding a child on the ground below him. "Get out of the way!" Senju Jingchuan shouted at the top of his voice. The man obviously had no time to pay attention to Senju Kagawa's reminder, as he was currently in a stalemate with several monsters. The monster with the long tongue tore away his kunao in one go, and his chakra was about to run out, with several lower-level monsters staring at him. However, due to the presence of the long-tongue monster, the low-level monsters didn't dare to share the prey in front of them. They could only circle around, staring at the child with short black frizzy hair in front of them with saliva in their mouths. Qian Shao Jingchuan is still 10 meters from the ground. At the critical moment, a huge manta ray suddenly appeared and caught Senju Kagawa, who was free falling. With a pop, Senju Jingchuan fell into a pool of mucus, face down. Ugh! Senju Jingchuan spat out the mucus in his mouth, wiped his face in disgust, and then complained. "Ugly monster, could you show up earlier next time? I almost fell to my death." "Oh! Master, don't you like the feeling of falling from the sky? I thought you humans liked this feeling very much." The ugly monster replied playfully. As the ugly monster appeared, a shadow covered the area below. The monster raised its head curiously and found the manta ray that blocked out the sun. The long-tongued evil ghost smelled a familiar and tempting scent, so he raised his head, stretched out his long tongue, and searched curiously. Fire escape! The art of the powerful fire dragon. As the short-haired boy quickly formed seals, a huge fire dragon appeared and rushed towards the surrounding monsters. Several monsters were looking up with drooling when they were suddenly burned to death by a fire attack. Senju Jingchuan curiously lay on Chobeo's back and looked down, and saw clearly how the big fire dragon sent those monsters that surrounded it in a circle flying. The boy with short frizzy hair took this opportunity to jump out of the circle of monsters that had surrounded him. But at the moment when he was about to escape, the long-tongued evil ghost suddenly stretched out its long tongue towards the direction where the boy was running. Seeing that the long tongue covered with mucus was about to touch the boy's back, Senju Jingchuan couldn't bear it anymore. He still remembered that this long-tongued evil ghost almost suffocated him. Senju Jingchuan pulled out the sun blade, pirated version, from the system space, concentrated his breathing, jumped off the ugly monster's back, concentrated all his strength in his arms, and slashed at the long-tongued monster. Sun breathing round dance. Along with dazzling flames, a circular slash appeared, cutting the monster in half. The long-tongued monster let out a scream, and the place where it was cut became charred as if it was burned by the sun, and spread to the whole body. The evil ghost's tongue, which was stretched out towards the short-haired boy, fell weakly from mid-air, and then turned into ashes inch by inch. The long-tongued monster fell to the ground, his eyes suddenly revealed a deep sadness, and then his eyes were filled with tears. He turned his face towards the direction of Senju Jingchuan, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and then he made a mouth shape to Senju Jingchuan. "Thanks." Senju Jingchuan was stunned when he saw the monster. Then he realized that the monster was once a human being. Just at this time, the sun, which was covered by dark clouds, came out, and the sunlight passed through the air and fell on the ground. The monster finally turned into foam and dissipated, just like the Little Mermaid in the fairy tale. It turned into foam that glowed brightly in the sun and slowly disappeared. The Little Mermaid turned into foam and returned to the embrace of the sea, so what about him? Where is his final destination? Senju Jingchuan felt lost. He thought of many things the moment he saw that relieved smile. He thought of the time when he stretched out his tongue to attack him, the inexplicable evil ghost virus, and the warm appearance of this town before the evil ghosts appeared. System, what will happen after the evil ghost is eliminated? Senju Jingchuan asked the system such a question for some unknown reason. The system replied. He will atone for his sins, go to reincarnation, and then have a brand new life. Chapter 20, looking at each other in silence, only tears flow. After the sunlight appeared, several other evil spirits that had turned into charcoal and were recovering also screamed and turned into foam and dissipated. Senju Jingchuan sighed after hearing the system's answer. The evil ghost followed its instinct to eat people, but before dying it recalled all its memories of its life and reincarnated with regret and hope. Perhaps the evil ghosts were originally ordinary people, but because of this sudden disaster, they became evil ghosts, lost their memories, and hurt people according to their instincts. Isn't this a kind of sadness? Senju Jingchuan was still feeling lost when the boy with short black frizzy hair suddenly walked up to him and said thank you to Senju Jingchuan. Senju Jingchuan raised his head and found that the boy in front of him had fair skin, delicate features, and beautiful black eyes. It could be seen that he would definitely be a great beauty in the future. Senju Kagamikawa's face control attribute was immediately triggered. He smiled and replied frivolously, "You're welcome. This is what I should do. How can I just sit there and wait to die when I see a beautiful woman being flirted by a monster's tongue?" Hearing this, the boy's face, which had turned pale due to the long battle, turned slightly red due to anger. He opened his mouth but could not curse because Senju Jingchuan had just saved him. The boy simply turned around and planned to say goodbye to Senju Jingchuan. How could Senju Jingchuan, who had finally come out of the time and space rift and saw a living person, let the boy go like this? His stick value has remained at 200 for a long time. That's right, 200. Ever since Senju Kagami-chuan and the ugly monster signed the contract, the ugly monster could no longer provide Senju Kagami-chuan with sticky points. Senju Kagami-chuan asked the system why, and the system simply replied that after signing the contract, the ugly monster was considered a part of Senju Kagami-chuan's body, and itself could not contribute sticky points to itself. Although Senju Jingchuan was speechless, he had no way to resist the system rules, so he could only accept it. Now that he has finally escaped from the rift in time and space and met a living person, how could Qianxiao Jingchuan let go of such a good opportunity to make some money? Hey! Wait a minute, brother. It's too dangerous here, and we are both alone now. It would be better for us to form a team to fight those monsters. Senju Jingchuan caught up with the boy. The boy pondered for a moment, thinking about how Senju Jingchuan had just split the long-tongued evil ghost in half with that one blow. Even though Senju Jingchuan looked only 4 or 5 years old, the boy did not dare to underestimate his strength. Besides, he was indeed alone now, and it was indeed very dangerous in this small town full of monsters. If he encountered a siege like today again, it would be difficult for one person to deal with it, so the boy accepted Senju Jingchuan's invitation. Senju Jingchuan smiled with satisfaction, he knew that no one would resist his charm. "My name is Kagamikawa, what's yours?" Senju Kagamikawa asked the boy. "Ban." Ban answered simply. In this chaotic world, it was common for ninjas not to exchange surnames with each other, and the two of them obviously had no intention of asking each other's surnames. "Ban, you have several wounds on your body. This will affect your next actions. The smell of blood may attract monsters. Why don't I help you treat them?" Senju Kagawa asked with a smile. He believed that Ban would definitely not refuse. After all, who would want to be injured and have to be on guard against the danger that Ken might encounter next? As expected, Madara did not refuse. He just looked at Senju Kagawa suspiciously, obviously questioning Senju Kagawa's ability. Senju Kagamikawa's smile froze. He held Madara's arm with one hand and covered Madara's wound with the other hand and used healing magic. A light green light appeared, and Madara only felt a slight itchiness and warmth on the wound that was originally stinging, and then the wound was healed. This process didn't even last a second. Madara opened his eyes wide in shock. Now he believed that Senju Kagamikawa knew medical ninjutsu and was very powerful at it. Senju Jingchuan was also shocked, because when his hand touched Madara, the system prompt sounded Tai value +7. This was the first time that Senju Jingchuan added 7 points of stickiness when touching a person. Qianxiao Jingchuan was shocked, Qianxiao Jingchuan was confused, and then Qianxiao Jingchuan suddenly realized. Could it be that Madara is the protagonist of the comic? But the system said before that he had already met the protagonist of the comic. Let's not talk about the two people here who were shocked by different things. Since the sun came out and shone on every corner of the town, many monsters wandering around the town disappeared due to being burned by the sun. The disappearance of the monster also brought great help to Senjuchinj, who was fighting hard. Senjuchinj, who had not eaten for a day and a night and had only been surviving on Bingliang pills, almost cried because of the shining sunlight. At that time, he was in a stalemate with several monsters and was almost bitten by the monsters because of exhaustion. Fortunately, the sun shone at this time and he survived the monster's mouth. Hungry, thirsty, and exhausted, Senjuchinj now just wants to find a place to rest for a while, bandage his wounds, and then go look for the missing Senju Jingchuan after he has regained his strength. In fact, Senju Chinj had seen a lot of food on the way of avoiding monsters and looking for Senju Jingchuan, but he didn't dare to eat it at all, for fear that he would become a monster after eating these poisonous food of unknown origin that might be the source of monster virus. After resting, Qian Shaochinj walked cautiously into a family's courtyard. Just as he was about to scoop some water from the well to quench his thirst, he noticed some movement in the house behind him. Thinking that the monster was coming again, Senju Chinj threw out a kunao reflexively. With a ding sound, the two kunao collided and then fell to the ground. Qian Shaochinj turned around quickly and took a defensive stance, but found. Hey! Brother Chinj! It's you! Senju Jingchuan ran to Senju Chinj in surprise and looked him up and down. After not seeing him for a few hours, Qian Shaochinj looked quite disheveled, with messy hair, bloodstains and dust on his face, and wounds of varying sizes all over his body, almost naked. Senju Chinj, who found out that the person coming was Kagamakuwa, hugged Kagamakuwa fiercely and choked up, saying, "Kamigawa! It's you! Fortunately, you are fine. I have been worried ever since you were sucked away by the wall." Wuvuwu. Senju Jingchuan didn't expect that Senju Chinj, a grown man, would cry for him. He was overwhelmed with emotions and couldn't help but be moved. This is totally wrong. He didn't even think about how dangerous it would be for Qian Shaochinj to be left there alone. Senju Jingchuan originally thought that he would be safe once the sun came out, but he never expected that the weather in the land of lightning would be so changeable. Madara looked at the two people, one big and one small, hugging each other and crying, and couldn't help but hold his forehead in silence. Chapter 21. After being hungry for a day and a night, Senju Chinj finally got his meal. He was almost crying with joy. Although he had been very tired on the battlefield before, there had never been a day that made Senju Chinj so frightened and regretful. He even went hungry for a day and a night and could only rely on Bingliang pills to replenish the energy he needed. "Brother Chinj, eat slowly, don't choke." Sen Shao Jingchuan couldn't help but say something when he saw Qian Shaochinj wolfing down the steamed bun that had become hard. Although Senju Jingchuan was also hungry, the steamed bun was too hard and a little sour due to being stored for a long time, so he could only eat one and could not eat any more. At this time, Senju Chinj was holding a steamed bun in one hand and chewing it. After hearing Senju Jingchuan's reminder, he responded with a few hum sounds, but did not slow down his chewing. As expected, Qian Shaochinj choked after taking a few bites. He swallowed hard, but still did not put the steamed bun down. He held the bun and pounded his chest. Senju Jingchuan quickly fed him the water. So Senju Chinj drank the water from Kagamakuwa's hand, and finally the steamed bun stuck in his esophagus went down. After this incident, Senju Chinj finally slowed down the pace of eating steamed buns. After eating 3 more steamed buns, Senju Chinj was finally full. He drank another glass of water, then clasped his fists and thanked Madara, who was resting with his eyes closed. "Thanks for the steamed buns, brother Madara." Madara opened his eyes and nodded coldly. Senju Kagamakuwa could not help but laugh when he saw Madara pretending to be aloof. He had been with Madara for a few hours, and due to Senju Kagamakuwa's one-sided clinging and sticking to him, he had become familiar with Madara, and with his own efforts, he had successfully broken Madara's defense many times. Therefore, now when Senju Kagamakuwa saw Madara's cold look, he couldn't help but want to laugh. When Madara heard Senju Kagamakuwa's laughter, he turned around and glared at him. Ahem! When Senju Kagamakuwa saw Madara glaring at him, he immediately tried hard to suppress the smile on his lips and sat up straight. But in the end, Senju Jingchuan couldn't suppress his laughter. He just laughed out loud, holding his stomach with one hand and pounding the table in front of him with the other. Senju Chinj didn't see the look that Madara glared at Kagamakuwa. He looked at Kagamakuwa in confusion as he laughed for no reason, showing the expression of an old man looking at his phone on the subway. Senju Kagawa laughed for a long time before he stopped and said to Senju Chinj, "Brother Chinj, let me take a look at your injury and help you heal it." After resting, Senju Jingchuan thought of what the system had told him. The wall monster is actually just a door connecting to another place. He pondered for a moment, since it is a door, and I can smell a strong fragrance around it, then if I am not accidentally involved in the space-time rift this time, then can I find the reason why the evil ghost appeared through the door? Senju Jingchuan thought this was a very feasible idea. So he told Senju Nariwa and Madara his idea. So Jing Chuan-kun smelled that strange fragrance that I couldn't smell, so he went straight to the wall. Senju Chinj suddenly realized. Madara looked at Senju Kagawa with strange eyes, and only said after making Senju Kagawa feel hairy all over, I can smell that strange fragrance, too. Senju Jing Chuan and Senju Chinj had the same question mark face. When they walked to the house again, they encountered a few monsters, but they were all lower-level monsters, and the three of them quickly dealt with them. Senju Kagamikawa ran straight to the room. As soon as he stepped into the room, Senju Kagamikawa and Madara were overwhelmed by the strong fragrance and couldn't help frowning. This time, Qian Shao Jing Chuan had experience. He did not put his hand directly on it, but first asked the ugly monster whether there was a space-time crack here. After getting a negative answer from the ugly monster, Jing Chuan decisively reached out and touched the wall. This time, Senju Jing Chuan once again pressed a handprint on it that matched the size of his palm. He stretched his hand forward again and felt his fingers break through the obstruction of the door and reach another space. Senju Jing Chuan covered his arms with flames as a defense before he stretched his entire arm into the wall, smoothly and without any obstruction. Wow! How amazing! Exclaimed Qian Shaochenj. Immediately afterwards, Senju Jing Chuan stuck his head directly into the wall, passed through the obstruction of the door and saw the scene of another space. It was also a room, very empty, but the fragrance there was much stronger and more pungent than that outside the door. After careful observation and confirmation that there was no danger in the other space, Senju Kagamikawa pulled his head out and turned to signal Senju Chinj and Madara to follow. The three successfully passed through the door and reached another room. When Ban smelled the strong fragrance here, he coughed twice and his eyes turned slightly red due to the irritation. Senju Kagamikawa handed Madara a pair of nose plugs he had exchanged from the TD Mall and motioned for him to put them on. There is a tunnel here. Qian Shaochenj, who was not affected by the strange fragrance, first explored the room and found a hidden tunnel hidden under a solid table. After pushing the table away, the whole picture of the tunnel was revealed. Very big. Enough for Senju Jing Chuan and the other two to pass through. Let me explore the way ahead. I'm a perception-type ninja and can detect danger first. Senju Chinj suggested. Senju Kagamikawa and Madara did not refuse. When going down the tunnel, Senju Kagawa suddenly reached out and grabbed Madara. When Madara showed a puzzled look, Senju Kagawa showed a pitiful expression. Brother Ban, I'm afraid of the dark. Senju Kagawa is already delicate and cute in appearance, and he is still young, so it is easy for him to gain sympathy when he shows such a pitiful expression, not to mention that Senju Kagawa is as delicate as Uchiha. When he saw Senju Kagamikawa acting coquettishly, Madara couldn't help but imagine his younger brother Izuna, so he agreed easily. Senju Kagamikawa knew that Madara would agree, so he listened contentedly to the reminder sound of Tai Tai value +7 that kept ringing, and walked down the tunnel holding Madara's hand. Chapter 22. He disappeared. The tunnel was very dark, but luckily the flame of Senju Jing Chuan was very powerful, so the three of them did not have to explore in the dark. The smell of blood here is very strong, said Sen Shaochenj, the only one who could smell other scents without being disturbed by the strange fragrance. When Qian Shaochenj entered the tunnel, the first smell he smelled was a strong dusty and rotten smell caused by the lack of air for a long time. Going deeper, he could clearly smell a faint smell of blood in the tunnel, mixed with the smell of something burning, and even the smell of a rotting corpse. Moreover, the further he went, the more he felt a sense of uneasiness, a very strong uneasiness. His heartbeat accelerated involuntarily, and a little cold sweat appeared on his forehead. This tunnel is too long, said Madara. They had been walking for several minutes, but still had no sign of reaching the bottom. When they shone the flame forward, they could only see a dark, abyss-like, bottomless black hole. Madara's muscles were tense, and he was obviously ready for battle at any time. His eyes, bright and sharp like an eagle, stared at the darkness in front of him, his brows were slightly furrowed, and even his teeth were tightly clenched. Senju Kagawa, who was originally quite relaxed, was also affected by the atmosphere and started to get a little nervous. System, have you detected anything? Senju Jing Chuan quietly asked the system in his heart, hoping that he could provide some help. After a few seconds, the system responded. Host, I feel a strong sense of causality here. Perhaps the reason for the world crossing appears here. Master, I feel the breath of space-time cracks here. Perhaps I can use the power of space-time to help you deal with the enemy. The ugly monster who was sitting obediently on Qian Shao Jingchuan's shoulder suddenly spoke. The sound of shaha 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 rang out in the empty and silent tunnel. After hearing this strange sound, Senju and Madara turned their heads sharply and looked at the speaker, the ugly monster. Master, why are they all staring at me? The ugly monster was startled by the two people's gaze, and its tail hit the side of Senju Jingchuan's face with a pia sound. The side of Senju Jingchuan's face was covered with red marks due to the twitch of his tail. He rubbed his face and explained to the ugly monster in his mind. They don't understand you. Although the ugly and strange sound made Madara and Senju feel nervous, the cold atmosphere was somewhat relaxed after they found out it was a misunderstanding. The three of them continued to explore downwards. Finally they reached the bottom of the tunnel. There were a few lights on and it was not so dark anymore. Senju Jingchuan put out the fire. But what they didn't expect was, there are actually 3 forks in the road here. Qian Shao Jingchuan asked the system and the ugly monster, but neither of them could give him an accurate answer. Moreover, after walking here, although the strange fragrance is particularly strong, there is no way to tell which road has the strongest smell. What should we do? Qian Shao Jingchuan asked, should we split our forces into 3 groups? Qinju was silent. He didn't know what to do. Here, my chakra seems to be blocked by something. I can't sense the specific situation of the 3 roads. I can only sense that there is danger ahead. Ban frowned and thought for a moment, then suggested. Let's go together. This place is too dangerous and full of uncertainty. The 3 of us can help each other out. Okay. I agree with what Madara said. If the 3 of us are together, we will have someone to accompany us if we die. Senju Kagamikawa echoed and said jokingly. Without hesitation, Madara raised his hand and gave Senju Kagawa a violent slap and gently tapped Senju Kagawa's forehead, warning him not to say such unlucky words. At this moment, Senju Jingchuan, who did not activate the pain shielding, unfortunately got hit. Senju Kagamikawa cried out in pain, glared at Madara angrily, then covered his head and hid beside Senju. Madara sneered. He didn't use any strength at all just now, and Senju Jingchuan was pretending quite well. If he didn't know how much strength he had used, he would probably have been fooled by Senju Jingchuan. Hearing Madara's cold laughter, Senju Kagamikawa touched his nose guiltily. Ahem. Senju Jingchuan cleared his throat. He stood between the two of them, pulled up one of them with one hand, and shouted. My little ones! Follow me! I promise to protect you, my king! When Senju heard these funny words and looked at the funny expression on Senju Jingchuan's tender and delicate face, he couldn't help but want to laugh, but Senju didn't want to ruin Jingchuan's interest, so Senju tried hard to hold back his laughter. But my king, you are not even as tall as my waistband, suddenly added another blow. What Madara said made Senju completely unable to control himself, and he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Madara also laughed, and did not forget to take the time to sneer. Where can there be such a short king? Ha ha ha! Stop laughing! Senju Jingchuan watched them laugh at him and his face turned red with anger. Ah! Stop laughing! What's so funny? After a long while, Madara and Senju Nariwa finally stopped laughing. This smile was actually of some use. It immediately released the depression that had been accumulating in the 2 days' hearts of both of them. They both felt refreshed and relaxed. After all, this is all thanks to Senju Kagawa. But they were happy, and Senju Jingchuan was still angry. Thus, a world was created where only Senju Kagamikawa was hurt. However, Senju Jingchuan also knew that the situation was urgent and it was not the right time to joke or get angry. It would be fine to just smile and ease the tense atmosphere, but the most important task now was to find the secret of the evil ghost virus. The 3 of them thought about it again and decided to act together. After all, the power of a team is always much stronger than that of one person fighting alone, right? However, after thinking for a long time, the 3 of them still hadn't decided which path to take first. Forget it, just pick one at random. Either one is unknown anyway, so why not let luck decide? Senshao Jingchuan spread his hands helplessly and asked the other 2 for their opinions. Madara and Senju Nariwa remained silent, which was a disguised agreement to Senju Kagamikawa's proposal. Okay. Since you all agree, then, select the troops and generals. Okay. It's decided to be you. The passage in the middle. Senju Jingchuan said, pointing at the passage in the middle facing him. Qinzhou Jingchuan was still holding one person in each hand. He narrowed his eyes, pressed down the corners of his mouth, and asked the other two, "Are you ready?" After hearing their firm answers, Senju Jingchuan pulled them forward. His. Okay. After Senju Jingchuan stepped into the passage, he suddenly found that the two people he was originally holding had disappeared. He looked back suddenly, only to find that there was a wall there. Chapter 23. I have been dealing with myself for a long time. The moment the wall fell, not only did Senju Jingchuan's brain crash for a moment, but the two people who were forced to be left outside were also stunned. The passage is so wide, but it doesn't say that only one person can walk through it. Madara and Senju Narikazu only felt a force repelling them from entering the moment they stepped in, then bounced them out, and then a wall of earth fell down. Qian Shaoqinj was shocked, Qian Shaoqinj was puzzled, but Qian Shaoqinj did not give up. With the extraordinary power of 1,000 hands, he punched the earth wall, but the earth wall did not move at all. Instead, 1,000 hands Chinj was shocked by the reaction force and felt pain for a long time. Senju Chinj tried to use earth escape to move the earth wall away. However, this is of no use. Senju Chinj still didn't give up. He shouted Senju Jingchuan's name at the top of his voice. Senju Chinj's voice resounded throughout the tunnel, echoing in the tunnel for more than 10 times before stopping, almost numbing Madara's ears. Stop, stop, stop. Madara finally couldn't stand Senju Chinj's series of weird actions and interrupted Senju Chinj's actions. Qian Shaoqinj stopped his movements, but still murmured. Kagami-kawa-kun is not even 5 years old yet. If he is killed because of me, how can I face his family? Senju Chinj thought of how Senju Jingchuan had snatched his life from the hands of the god of death. He promised to protect Senju Jingchuan well during the mission. The current situation is something none of us expected. This is not your fault, so you don't have to blame yourself. Seeing Senju Chinj's frustrated look, Madara comforted him. Besides, I think he is very strong, at least not worse than me. Although he lacks some combat experience, I believe he will survive. Please believe him. Madara said with a smile. Qian Shaoqinj sat on the ground in silence for a moment, and then finally convinced himself. Yes, Kagami-kawa-kun is very good at taijutsu and also knows medical ninjutsu. Nothing will happen to him. And that mysterious swordsmanship. Madara added in his mind. He still couldn't forget the day when 1,000 Hands Kagami River came down from the sky and chopped the monster in half. He had fought with the long-tongued monster before and knew how tough its skin was. Even shuriken and kunao couldn't cut through its skin. Madara couldn't tell the origin of the sword technique, but it was because of that sword of Senju Kagawa that Madara believed that Senju Kagawa would never die so easily. In that case, let's split up and take the other two passages. Seeing that Senju Chinj had figured it out, Madara suggested, I'll go to the right and you go to the left. Be careful on the road. Senju Chinj said the last words to Madara before entering the passage. He sincerely hoped that this younger child was also safe, even though they had only known each other for a few hours. Yeah, you too. A gentle smile appeared on the corner of Madara's mouth. That gentle smile on his delicate face was like melting spring snow, which made people feel warm in their hearts. Now let's talk about Senju Jingchuan. After finding himself forced to separate from his two companions, Senju Kagami-kawa quickly accepted the reality. Alone, he was more cautious. Senju Jingchuan covered his entire body with a layer of flame, took out the sun wheel sword from the system space, and then slowly reached forward. Just as they were about to turn a corner, the ugly monster suddenly spoke. Master, be careful, I sense a very disgusting smell. The ugly monster leaned on Qian Shao Jingchuan's right shoulder and warned, that is a smell of decay, death and decay. Senju Kagami-kawa was now ready to fight and ready to face a powerful evil spirit. He gripped the sun blade tightly in his right hand and took a deep breath, transferring energy from his lungs to his entire body. Thinking that he might face a strong enemy, Qian Shao Jingchuan suddenly felt his blood boiling. Qian Shao Jingchuan has experienced several battles now, and is no longer the young man who was afraid and nervous when encountering bandits. He was just trying to see how powerful a monster his sun blade and sun breathing one form round dance could defeat. Senju Jingchuan held his breath and finally crossed the corner. The result surprised him. Huh? What's going on? Senju Jingchuan shouted in shock, staring ahead in amazement. Senju Jingchuan originally thought that he would see an ugly but powerful evil ghost, and he was prepared to be shocked by its ugliness. Unexpectedly, what he saw was a boy who was exactly like him from head to toe. The boy opposite also had white semi-long hair draped over his shoulders, fair skin, and delicate and cute looks. His black eyes, as clear as black crystal, stared seriously at the Senju Kagawa opposite him, holding a Nichiren sword in his right hand, and on his shoulder lay a derivative of the space-time rift that looked exactly like the ugly monster. Even after Senju Kagawa asked the question in shock, the Senju Kagawa on the opposite side also said the same words and made the same expression. Master, he looks like you, even his expression and voice are exactly the same. The ugly monster was so surprised that his eyeballs popped out. His long nerves and red eyes glanced at the Thousand Hands Mirror River opposite, and then turned back to observe the real Thousand Hands Mirror River. But he is fake. The disgusting smell comes from him. The ugly monster added. At this moment, the ugly monster on the shoulder of Senju Kagamakuwa on the opposite side also performed the same action and made the same sound. Senju Jingchuan and Senju Jingchuan were in a stalemate, as long as Senju Jingchuan did not make any move, the Senju Jingchuan on the opposite side would not make any move either. Senju Jingchuan said a few more words and made a few tentative gestures. As expected, that Thousand Hands Mirror River also said the same words and made the same movements at the same time. When Senju Kagawa tentatively moved forward, the Senju Kagawa on the opposite side did not move forward, but retreated. So, if he is a scholar, then as long as I don't actively attack him, he won't actively attack me? Senju Jingchuan thought of this bug. He decided to move forward and continue testing the waters. The Thousand Hands Mirror River continued to move forward, and that Thousand Hands Mirror River continued to move backward. Seeing that this method worked, Senju Jingchuan immediately strode forward and walked directly to the door that seemed to be the exit. Senju Jingchuan thought that he might be the first person in history to solve the problem of fighting with himself, and in such a peaceful way. However, when Senju Kagawa's hand was about to touch the door of the exit, something strange happened. Senju Kagawa was bounced back by the door. Senju Kagawa raised the sun blade in his hand. Breathing of the sun form one round dance. Chapter 24. What? Senju Kagawa was violently bounced up by the door. Before he could land and react, the Senju Kagawa raised the sun wheel sword with flames wrapped around it and slashed towards him. Senju Kagamakuwa held the sword with both hands and slashed forward with a circular flaming blow. The flames coming towards him were reflected in Senju Jingchuan's red pupils, and he obviously had no way to avoid them while in mid-air. Just when the flaming slash was about to fall on him, Senju Jingchuan took action. He quickly aimed his hands at the ground and blasted out a blast of flames. The flames exploded, and Senju Jingchuan used the flames to fly upwards and avoided the attack of Senju Jingchuan. The circular flame slash collided with the flame of Senju Jingchuan, making a loud boom sound. In an instant, gravel flew everywhere and the tunnel was filled with dust and smoke. Senju Jingchuan curled up his body, held his head tightly with both hands to protect it, and avoided the explosion. The moment he landed, he quickly stretched his body and hid in the corner. Senju Jingchuan breathed a sigh of relief. This time he really had to thank Senju Fujian for the devilish training he had given him. If it weren't for the physical strength and limb control that Qian Shaofujian had trained him in, he would have no way of avoiding this attack. The tunnel suddenly lit up and then quickly darkened. The tunnel has been badly damaged, and now it is filled with smoke and dust, with very low visibility. What's more, without the illumination of the Thousand Hands Mirror River's flame, the tunnel was pitch black and nothing could be seen clearly. Senju Kagawa leaned his back slightly against the wall, holding the sun blade in his hand, tilted his head slightly, and breathed lightly. After learning the full concentration Changzhong breathing, Senju Jingchuan's breathing became exceptionally long. In order to completely digest the energy inhaled into his lungs, Senju Jingchuan could often hold on for more than a minute after inhaling a breath before exhaling the foul air that had circulated in his lungs for several times. Therefore, Senju Jingchuan does not need to hold his breath deliberately. He only needs to lighten his breathing and slow down his breathing speed to hide well. Even in today's total darkness, it is difficult to detect any traces. What should I do? Qian Shaojing Chuan thought in his heart. He had never expected that the Thousand Hands Mirror River would act out of the ordinary. It was supposed to be a mirror image of the original body, doing the same actions as the original body, so why would it suddenly attack? Could it be because Senju Kagawa touched the door? Is it true that the only way for him to leave here is to destroy Thousand Hands Mirror River? Will that Thousand Hands Mirror River take the initiative to attack him again? Since he couldn't get out directly, he could only fight. However, Senju Jingchuan decided to hold back for the time being and see how that Senju Jingchuan would react. Suddenly, Senju Jingchuan's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and a feeling of uneasiness arose in his heart. His instinct told him danger, 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 he should get out of the way. Senju Jingchuan believed in his sense of crisis, and he dodged to the side without hesitation. Sure enough, the next second, a loud boom was heard, and the place where Senju Jingchuan was hiding was turned into ruins. Senju Kagawa used actual actions to tell Senju Kagawa that although he was fake, he would take the initiative to attack. Well, there is no need to hesitate now, I can only fight him. Senju Kagawa thought helplessly. However, what Qian Shao Jingchuan was more concerned about at the moment was not whether to fight or not, but whether the Qian Shao Jingchuan on the opposite side had copied all his abilities. If so, how should he fight? Senju Jingchuan looked up, only to find that Senju Jingchuan was covered in flames, just like the original Senju Jingchuan. Well, now Senju Kagamigawa has revealed its flame ability and sun-breathing one-form round dance that are exactly the same as the Senju Kagamigawa. Even the sun blade and the ugly monster were copied. It seems that he can do it, and the Thousand Hands Mirror River on the opposite side can do it too. How should they fight against each other? Sen Shao Jingchuan was puzzled and fell into deep thought. Brother on the opposite side, let's put down our sun blades and have a good talk. Using force won't solve the problem. If you don't want me to get out, just say so directly, instead of attacking me all of a sudden. Senju Kagawa said a long speech helplessly, trying to reason with this Senju Kagawa. Senju Jingchuan reasoned and persuaded for peace. Senju Jingchuan picked up the knife and refused to listen. Seeing that the Senju Kagawa on the opposite side didn't listen to what he just said, and still picked up the sun blade and was about to chop at him, Senju Kagawa also hurriedly picked up the sun blade and took the lead in using sun-breathing one-form round dance, intending to take the initiative in the battle first. Although the ending is still a fight between the real and fake Senju Kagawa, at least we know that Senju Kagawa has no consciousness of his own and is just a complete mirror image. Isn't it much easier to hit a mindless dummy? No, it's not easy at all. Hoo. After a few rounds, Senju Kagawa had already felt tired due to the long-term consumption of a large amount of chakra and physical strength. But the Senju Kagawa on the opposite side was like a machine, not tired at all, with endless power. Qian Shao Jingchuan was in trouble. He didn't know how to eliminate his other self. Chapter 25, Different Experiences of Three People. Breathing of the Sun form one round dance. Senju Kagawa and Senju Kagawa used this move at the same time. Both of them held the sun blade tightly in both hands and swung it forward. The blades of the sunwheel swords collided, sparks flew, and a sharp metallic sound was heard. The flames produced by the move tightly surrounded the two of them, like some kind of special effects, gorgeous and warm. Neither of them was willing to give up, and both put in all their strength, concentrating all their power on the sunwheel swords in their hands. Neither of them was willing to let the other go. At this moment, Sen Shao Jingchuan felt his blood boiling and his whole body was warm. All the heat in his body gushed out with each violent breath. He breathed greedily, absorbing the energy from the surroundings, then filtered the energy from head to toe, and finally transformed it into flames on the knife and rolled forward. The Thousand Hands Mirror River is evenly matched with the Thousand Hands Mirror River. Whenever Thousand Hands Jingchuan uses a move, the other Thousand Hands Jingchuan will immediately use the same move, almost synchronously. On the other side, the ugly monster and the ugly monster were also fighting fiercely. The ugly monster slapped the opponent with one wing, and the opponent immediately slapped back with one wing. The two ugly and cute creatures fought in close combat using their wings and tails. After fighting for a while, most of Senju Jingchuan's physical strength had been consumed, but the Senju Jingchuan on the opposite side obviously showed no signs of fatigue and was still as relaxed as at the beginning. The one on the opposite side is a tireless monster of unknown kind, but Senju Jingchuan is a flesh and blood person. He can bleed and feel tired. Just now, during the fight with Senju Kagawa's body had been cut by the Nichiren sword, leaving several burnt wounds. If Senju Kagawa had not reacted quickly, even if the healing technique was applied to the wounds, the burn marks there might have spread to the whole body by now. Even so, even after so long, the scars still looked terrible, with no sign of being healed. Senju Kagawa's healing technique was only to keep the wounds from getting worse. However, the Senju Kagamaikawa on the opposite side obviously had no worries about being injured or bleeding. Even if he also had a few more wounds on his body, they would recover quickly. Can't be killed at all. Some force is interfering with the healing of my wound. Qian Shaojing Chuan thought that he must find a way out as soon as possible. He stopped fighting for the time being. In the previous battle, he found that whenever he used a certain move, the Thousand Hands Mirror River on the other side would use the same move. But because of this, as long as the Thousand Hands Mirror River did not actively attack, the Thousand Hands Mirror River on the other side would not actively attack either. Of course, the premise was that the Thousand Hands Mirror River did not touch the door. As long as Senju Jingchuan touches the door, another Senju Jingchuan will attack like crazy, with moves coming at Senju Jingchuan as numerous and fast as a rainstorm. Qian Shao Jingchuan did not act rashly at this time. He just stood there to adjust his breathing and rest for a while. He held the sun blade across his chest and examined it carefully, and discovered that there were already many cracks on the blade, and even gaps in some places. I'm sure that after a few more moves, this pirated sun blade will be completely shattered. What to do? What should I do? Since entering this passage and being separated from the other two, the system seemed to have disappeared and could no longer be contacted. Just like a cell phone without a signal in a deep forest, Qian Shao Jingchuan had now lost the only way to obtain information from the outside world. The ugly monsters on the other side seemed to be exhausted and both sides were injured. The two manta rays had collapsed to the ground, motionless, and their life or death was unknown. However, Sen Shao Jingchuan, who had signed a contract with the ugly monster, knew that the ugly monster had also discovered the rule of I don't move unless the enemy moves, and it was just resting because it was tired of fighting. Sen Shao Jingchuan thought that since the monster opposite was a fabricated mirror image, it must need energy support. All he had to do was find the energy source that supported it and then destroy it. But what is the energy source that supports the Thousand Hands Mirror River operation? Senju Jingchuan looked carefully at the destroyed tunnel and fell into deep thought. Let's talk about the other two sides. Madara and Senju each entered two other passages and encountered different situations. As soon as the two entered the passage, the candles in their hands that served as a means of lighting were blown out by a gust of wind. Suddenly, they were in darkness and could not see anything. As soon as Senju entered the left passage, he was hit by several hidden weapons. He could not see anything clearly and could only rely on his sensitive hearing in the dark and his intuition as a perception-type ninja to dodge the hidden weapons. Then he extended the chakra forward to see what was ahead. You won't know until you explore. Once you explore, you'll be shocked to find that the road ahead is full of traps and there is almost no place to stand. But once the arrow is shot, there is no turning back. The entrance behind him has been blocked by a solid earth wall, so he can only move forward. As Senju moved forward, he did not forget to think of Senju Kagawa and Madara, and began to worry about their situation. But soon he couldn't think of anything else, because the trap ahead was designed to catch the enemy by surprise, and anything could be thrown out as a hidden weapon. If Qian Shaochinj didn't concentrate on dealing with the traps ahead, he might fall into the pit and drown in the next second, or be choked to death by the chili powder in the air. Let's talk about Ban here. After he entered the passage, except that the candle in his hand was extinguished, there was no other danger. The passage was too quiet, and even revealed a sense of crisis of impending storm. Madara walked forward cautiously in the dark, and even used summoning techniques to summon ninja cats to act as his eyes in the dark to avoid danger. Unexpectedly, when he turned a corner, the passage suddenly lit up. The sudden light scared the ninja cat and made it meow, and also stimulated Madara to immediately take a defensive posture and prepare for battle, even though his eyes were so irritated that he couldn't open them because of the sudden glare. As a result, Madara, who thought he would encounter a strong enemy, actually saw a bunch of murals. He approached cautiously and found that there was some kind of story depicted on it. Ban studied the mural patiently, while also not forgetting to be on the lookout behind him, fearing that an enemy might suddenly launch a sneak attack. After finally looking at all the murals, Ban discovered that he had no enemies here, and those murals only told a story of a boy who was sacrificed.